Chapter 1760. You heard it from the ancestor? Qin Feiyang stared blankly and hurriedly asked, "What did the ancestor say?" The mysterious madam thought for a moment and shook her head. He only mentioned it casually. He didn't go into detail. Just casually mentioned it. Qin Feiyang's face was filled with disappointment. The mysterious madam asked suspiciously, "Why are you suddenly asking about the ancient realm?" "To tell you the truth, I went to the ancient realm some time ago. I found someone there who knew the ancestor. And what's even stranger is, when Qin Feiyang said this, his expression became incomparably strange. Know him?" The mysterious lady was stunned. Her breathing quickened as she asked, "Who knows him?" Qin Feiyang said, "Two people with the surname Guo." "What do they look like?" the mysterious madam asked. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Pseudo-god power appeared and condensed into the figures of Guo Zixiong and Guida. The mysterious madam looked at them for a moment and shook her head. "I don't know them at all." Yi Shu said suspiciously, "Kid, you said there's something even stranger. What is it?" Qin Feiyang was speechless. Zhao Tai-Lai and Tang Hai looked at each other and could not help but snicker. Qin Feiyang glared at the two of them. He looked at the mysterious madam and Yi Shu and said, "The ancestor arranged a marriage for me in the ancient realm." "What's that? A marriage?" The two of them looked at each other. Yes, Qin Feiyang's face was full of helplessness. That can't be right. When your ancestor left, your father wasn't even born yet. Even if he went to the ancient realm, he couldn't have arranged a marriage for you. Is there a trap here? The mysterious madam asked. "The marriage is not just for me. It's for the descendants of the Qin clan. In other words, as long as it's a descendant of the Qin clan, no matter who it is, they have to complete the marriage after entering the ancient realm." Qin Feiyang briefly told her about the marriage contract. "I see." The mysterious madam suddenly understood and asked, "Where's the entrance to the ancient realm?" Her eyes were full of desire. Qin Feiyang was a little hesitant. Even he did not understand the situation in the ancient realm. Should he tell his great-grandmother about it? "Eldest miss, the Qin emperor did not take you with him because he was afraid that you would be hurt. Why do you have to ask about this now?" Yi Shu said. Obviously, he could see that Qin Feiyang was in a difficult position. The mysterious madam took a deep look at Yi Shu, then turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, "Pretend I didn't ask." Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Actually, even if I told you, you wouldn't be able to enter because the entrance to the ancient realm is on the first level." The entrance, the first. The mysterious madam was dumbfounded. Then a bitter smile appeared on her face. Indeed. Even if she know the entrance, because she couldn't enter the ancient realm. The monkey-faced old man walked in front of Qin Feiyang and cupped his hands. "Brother Qin, I'm really sorry about before." "Yes, because of our moment of confusion, we almost caused a disaster. I hope Brother Qin can forgive us." The former deputy pavilion master and the hook-nosed old man were also apologetic. Wang Su's expression was extremely complicated. "Seniors, you're too polite." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. He was not an unreasonable person. These people were all kept in the dark and used by the chief tower master. Now that the truth was out and the misunderstanding was cleared, how could he bear a grudge? However, there was one person that he must not let go. He looked at Wang Yuanshan. At the same time, Chui Li also looked at Wang Yuanshan, his eyes flashing with shocking murderous intent. Wang Yuanshan saw that the situation was not good and immediately hid behind Wang Su, his face full of fear. "What's wrong, Feiyang?" The mysterious madam looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. The monkey-faced old man and the others also noticed that the atmosphere was not right. Wang Su frowned. "Qin Feiyang is my biological father and you Er's great-grandfather. You." But before Wang Su could finish, Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. I know all this. Seeing Qin Feiyang's gaze becoming more and more terrifying, Wang Su's heart skipped a beat. He turned to Wang Yuanshan and asked anxiously, "Father, did you do something to him?" Wang Yuanshan stammered. "You don't dare to say it?" "All right, I'll say it for you." Cui Li gritted his teeth and looked at everyone. "Wang Yuanshan and I are old friends. I even risked my life to save him and Wang Yu, in the Black Tortoise world. But what about him? He betrayed me and caused the deaths of everyone in Seven Fiend City, including my brothers. Betrayed." The mysterious madam and Yi Shu were bewildered. Wang Su said in a low voice, "Father, what's going on?" "This is not my fault. Even if it was the giant python and the fire dragon, I didn't want this to happen." Wang Yuanshan shook his head. "You didn't want this to happen either? What a joke. If you had done as I said, you and Wang Yu would definitely have been able to escape Seven Fiend City, and the people in Seven Fiend City would have been fine. But what did you do? Not only did you not know how to be grateful, you even sent us to our deaths. Wang Yuanshan, you are really ruthless. Millions of people in Seven Fiend City died because of your selfishness and ambition." Cui Li roared. "No." Wang Yuanshan shook his head. "No. You think I don't know the reason why you betrayed me? Isn't it because you want to curry favor with the giant python and the fire dragon and make them your backing?" Cui Li said angrily. Wang Su looked at Wang Yuanshan in disappointment and asked, "Father, is what he said true?" "Su or I?" Wang Yuanshan's face was filled with panic. "What Cui Li said is true. And that's not all," Qin Feiyang said. "What else?" Mysterious Madam and the rest were bewildered. Zhao Tailai said, and Wang Yu if not for young master's help, Wang Yu would have been killed by him. Wang Su roared, "Father, what are you thinking? You have really disappointed me." Wang Yuanshan was extremely terrified and knelt on the ground. He looked at Cui Li and said, "Brother Cui, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please forgive me this once. If I forgive you now, will I still be able to face those souls who died unjustly? Will I still be able to face my brothers who died tragically?" Cui Li said angrily, his face filled with sorrow. Wang Yuanshan's gaze trembled as he looked at Wang Su for help. Wang Su sighed and turned to look at Cui Li. He bowed and said, "Brother Cui, I'm willing to bear the sins of father." Cui Li said, "I'm afraid you won't be able to bear it." Wang Su went silent. So many people had died tragically. Such a monstrous sin was indeed something he could not bear. But as long as he could save his father, no matter what he had to do, he would not complain. He looked at Cui Li, looked at Qin Feiyang, and finally looked at Wang Yuanshan. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth, took out a calamity spirit pill, and threw it into his mouth without hesitation. "Suer, Wang Su." The monkey-faced old man and the others changed color. The mysterious lady immediately stepped forward and slapped Wang Su's back. Puff! Immediately, the calamity spirit pill was accompanied by a mouthful of old blood. Wang Su roared, "Young miss, don't stop me. I want to atone for father's sins." "Shut up!" The mysterious lady snorted and said, "This is Wang Yuanshan's sin. Although you are his son, you should not bear it." Wang Su said, "Young miss, it wasn't easy for me to reunite with father. How can I just watch him die in front of me? A son must pay his father's debts. I am willing to pay his debts." The mysterious lady raised her eyebrows and turned to look at Qin Feiyang. "I can turn a blind eye to other things, but not this. Cui Li is not only my subordinate, but also my family. His grudge is also my grudge." Qin Feiyang said expressionlessly, "Feiyang, Su, and the others don't know the situation in the Black Tortoise world, but you do. The giant python is the guardian of the miracle, and the fire dragon is a terrifying divine beast. is pardonable for me to curry favor with them and curry favor with them. I admit that doing so is indeed selfish, but it is also to protect you. Wang Yuanshan looked at Qin Feiyang and exclaimed. Qin Feiyang said, Chui Li is also protecting you. I know, but in that situation, no one would believe that Chui Li could help us escape. Wang Yuanshan said, Sai, even now, you are still twisting words and forcing logic. It is really hard not to kill you. Qin Feiyang sighed. Using the walk word technique, he instantly appeared behind Wang Yuanshan. Wang Su roared, Qin Feiyang, you dare! Humph! Qin Feiyang snorted. He raised his hand and slapped the top of Wang Yuanshan's head. Crack! Wang Yuanshan's head exploded like a watermelon, and his soul was immediately annihilated. Father! Qin Feiyang, I will not rest until you are dead. Wang Su roared in grief. His hair stood on end as he madly pounced at Qin Feiyang. The mysterious lady grabbed Wang Su's arm and shouted, Wang Su, enough is enough! Young miss, let go of me, Wang Su roared. The mysterious lady frowned. She raised her hand and slammed it on the back of Wang Su's head. With a bang, Wang Su fainted. Wang Yuanshan's body also fell to the ground. Brothers of Seven Demon City, young master has avenged you. You can rest in peace now. Chui Li looked at Wang Yuanshan's body and muttered to himself. 2 drops of tears flowed from the corner of his eyes. He then walked to Qin Feiyang and bowed. Young master, thank you. He knew that Qin Feiyang did not care about Wang Su and killed Wang Yuanshan in front of everyone because of him. He also knew, once he killed Wang Yuanshan, the grudge between Qin Feiyang and Wang Su would never be resolved. In fact, he had already decided to give up on revenge. It was not that he was magnanimous and forgave Wang Yuanshan. It was because he did not want to make things difficult for Qin Feiyang. After all, Qin Feiyang and Wang Yuer's relationship was not ordinary, and Wang Yuanshan was Wang Yuer's great-grandfather. These layers of relationships would make it difficult for Qin Feiyang to get along with Wang Yuer's family in the future. But Qin Feiyang did not hesitate and killed Wang Yuanshan on the spot. How could he not be moved? Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. You are my subordinate. It is only right for me to avenge you. All right, now that you have avenged, go and cultivate. Junior Leopard has already broken through to the War God realm. You have to speed up and not let me down. Yes. Chui Li nodded. Chapter 1761. With a wave of his hand, Qin Feiyang sent Chui Li to the castle. With enough soul stones, Chui Li believed that it wouldn't take long for him to break through to the War God realm. Next, Qin Feiyang also sent the 6 elders, Li Jian and Yuang, to the castle, leaving only the Golden Leopard and Tang Hai outside. The mysterious lady looked at the monkey-faced old man and the others. You guys should also go to the spatial artifact to heal your wounds. Also, bring Wang Yuanshan's body with you. After all, he is a person of our forgotten continent. We should let him return to his roots. Yes. The few of them nodded respectfully. The monkey-faced old man walked forward, carrying the unconscious Wang Su in one hand and Wang Yuanshan's body in the other. The mysterious lady waved her hand, and the group disappeared. Yi Shu glanced at Qin Feiyang and said in an annoyed tone, Brat, you've killed him. You should be able to vent your anger now. Qin Feiyang said, If it weren't for you or pleading for him, I would have killed him back in the Black Tortoise world. To tell you the truth, which one of us doesn't have blood on our hands? This time it's you. If it were anyone else, I definitely wouldn't have allowed them to harm my tower's people. The mysterious lady said, Great-grandmother, don't compare me to you. Although I've killed many people, most of them deserve to die. Qin Feiyang chuckled. The mysterious lady raised her eyebrows and said angrily, Why do you sound like I'm the same type of person as Wang Yuanshan? Although not the same type, it's not that far off. Qin Feiyang snickered. Are you looking for a beating? The mysterious lady's face darkened and she raised her hand to knock Qin Feiyang's head. Qin Feiyang quickly dodged. The mysterious lady shook her head with a smile. Jokes aside, there are some things you should think about first. Think about what? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Wang Su, Wang Yuer's parents, you killed Wang Yuanshan. They definitely won't forgive you easily. And young Master Hao. Although that child is older than you, he hasn't experienced as much as you have. I'm afraid that the matter of the head pagoda master will be quite a blow to him. To be honest, I don't even know how to tell him. The mysterious lady sighed. Qin Feiyang said, Young Master Hao is the pagoda master's son. Leaving him alive will only lead to endless troubles in the future. We might as well just kill him. The mysterious lady was stunned. She looked at Qin Feiyang with a smile and asked, Are you speaking from your heart? Qin Feiyang said, Isn't that what you think? According to his great-grandmother's personality, she definitely wouldn't leave a disaster like young Master Hao alive. The mysterious madam rolled her eyes at Qin Feiyang and sighed. I have indeed thought of cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots. However, his father is my junior martial brother after all. He can also be considered as my nephew. Moreover, his father only has one son. I can't bear to kill him. Ayaya, when did great-grandmother become so kind? Qin Feiyang was surprised. A row of black lines appeared on the mysterious lady's forehead. She said angrily, Boy, are you really itching for a beating? Great-grandmother, please spare me. Qin Feiyang hurriedly retreated. Seeing Qin Feiyang and the mysterious lady quarreling without any estrangement, Yi Shu felt happy for the mysterious lady from the bottom of her heart. Stop fooling around. You go and tell young Master how about this. The mysterious lady looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Me. Qin Feiyang frowned. Yes, if he can accept it and swears to cut off all ties with the head pagoda master, I will treat him as family. The mysterious lady said, What if he can't accept it? Qin Feiyang asked. You should know what to do. The mysterious lady said. Qin Feiyang sighed. You're asking me to be the bad guy. Why? You're not willing to do such a small thing? The mysterious lady said angrily. How can I not be willing? You're my great-grandmother. What if you beat me up? I can't fight back. Qin Feiyang chuckled. The mysterious lady shook her head and laughed. What's next? Do we continue to train on the second floor, or go back? Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and shook his head. We've been training for so long. Let's go back. Yi Shu said, I think we should train for a while longer. Why? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. You should know that once we leave the divine site, we won't only have to face Mu Tianyang, but also the Demon Lord and Mu Tianjun. Those three people were all people who could stand shoulder to shoulder with your ancestor. The Demon Lord is a heaven-defying existence. Back then, your ancestor, Mu Tianyang and Mu Tianjun, worked together to deal with him. If the three of them work together, we'll be in a very bad situation. That's why I suggest we wait until you become a war god before we leave. Yi Shu said in a deep voice. The mysterious lady said, Yi Shu's consideration is not without reason. Qin Feiyang nodded. If the Demon Lord and Mu Tianyang fought separately, it wouldn't be a problem. But if the two sides work together, it would indeed be a problem. The mysterious madam said, Only you can break this balance because you have a heaven-defying deity technique and the godly dragon technique that has just transformed into a perfect deity technique. When you break through to war god, you should be able to fight the demon ancestor. A perfect divine technique? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He waved his hand and a stone door appeared. Following that, a divine statue, a divine dragon, and a divine seal also appeared one after another. Ever since the dragon god technique evolved, he hadn't carefully looked at it. His eyes were filled with curiosity. These are the forms of the dragon god technique's 4 forms. Only a perfect divine technique can condense a form, the mysterious lady said. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. When everyone was discussing these things, Qin Feiyang was still in an ethereal state, so he didn't hear it. Yi Shu said, "Kid, have your other divine techniques condensed a form?" "No, if we calculate according to the dragon god technique's level. The evolved fire phoenix technique should be a high-tier divine technique. Eclipse Moon and the twice-evolved Return to Ruin technique are both mid-tier divine techniques. As for the newly evolved Guiyuan sword technique, there's no doubt that it's a low-tier divine technique." Qin Feiyang said, "What about the 3,000 incarnations?" Yi Shu asked. Qin Feiyang said, "I can't describe the 3,000 incarnations, but it should be a divine technique. The 3,000 incarnations are indeed different from other divine techniques. According to my observation, it should be a supportive divine technique," the mysterious lady said. Qin Feiyang nodded. "What about your 6-word divine technique?" Yi Shu asked again. "I've only mastered 4 of the 6-word divine techniques, and they haven't condensed a form yet. But they're undoubtedly divine techniques," Qin Feiyang said with a smile. The mysterious lady said, "Actually, according to your ancestor, there's a higher level above the perfect divine technique." "Higher?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "Yes, but he only mentioned it in passing and didn't go into detail." The mysterious lady said, "Higher? There's a higher level divine technique. There's a higher level of cultivation. Then what's the level above war god?" Qin Feiyang murmured. "And where exactly was the end point of cultivation? Or was it that there was no end to the path of cultivation?" There were too many questions that he couldn't figure out. Whoosh! Suddenly, a terrifying divine might descended from the sky. "Who's there?" The mysterious lady and Yi Shu's expressions changed. They quickly looked up and saw a 10-meter-long fire python floating in the sky. Its aura was oppressive. "Don't be nervous." Qin Feiyang quickly comforted the two. "You know each other?" The mysterious lady and Yi Shu were stunned and asked. "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at the fire python with a smile. "Brother Fire, let me introduce you. This is my great-grandmother. Great-grandmother. She's the current guardian of the divine ruins." "Guardian." The mysterious lady and Yi Shu looked at each other in disbelief. How could this kid be brothers with the guardian? When they came back to their senses, the two quickly cupped their hands and said, "Greetings, Lord Guardian." "No need to be so polite." The fire python smiled and looked at Qin Feiyang, saying, "Brother Qin, come up and talk." "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded and turned to the mysterious lady and Tang Hai, saying, "Wait for me here." They nodded. Qin Feiyang flew up and landed in front of the fire python. He whispered, "Brother Fire, how's my cousin?" The fire python replied, "I didn't see him. I heard from the beast god that he was taken away by the ice dragon." "Taken away?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked anxiously, "Where?" "I'm not sure, but according to the beast god, the ice dragon seems to have taken a liking to his talent and wants to take him as a disciple." The fire python said. This, Qin Feiyang was stunned. The ice dragon wants to take his cousin as a disciple? If that was the case, wouldn't it be a great fortune? If the ice dragon really has such intentions, it's indeed a great fortune for your cousin. The fire python smiled. Qin Feiyang sighed. "Even so, you and I don't know if that's the case." "That's what I'm thinking too. But it's useless to think about it." The fire python said. "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, "Then do you know the relationship between the ice dragon and the small beast?" "Friends, but the beast god is much stronger than the ice dragon." The fire python said. "What? Stronger than the ice dragon?" Qin Feiyang was shocked. Yes. The beast god himself said that the ice dragon is just a little worm in its eyes, and it can destroy it with a wave of its claws. The fire python said, Qin Feiyang sucked in a breath of cold air. The ice dragon is an existence that can even suppress a heaven-defying artifact, but it can destroy it with just a wave of its claws. How terrifying is the small beast's strength? The fire python said, I'll help you inquire about your cousin's situation if there's a chance. Now, let's talk about the fire dragon first. Then I'll thank you in advance. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and thanked, then asked suspiciously, What happened to the fire dragon? The fire python said gloomily, I haven't found the whereabouts of the fire dragon, and I'm not satisfied. Qin Feiyang frowned. Why didn't the small beast tell you? How would I know? These days I've been thinking, is the beast god deliberately shielding it? Otherwise, why didn't it give the fire dragon to me? The fire python said angrily. Qin Feiyang sighed. Even if it's shielding the fire dragon, you don't dare to do anything. Yes, it's the master of the miracle. My life and death are in its hands. What can I do? So, Brother Qin, I want to ask you, the fire python said. Chapter 1762. Qin Feiyang said, Please tell me, Brother Fire. As long as it's within my power, I'll do my best. The fire python regarded him as a friend and confidant. Of course. He wouldn't let the fire python down. I know that after you leave the divine ruin, you'll definitely come back. When you enter the 3rd level, you must find the fire dragon and help me get rid of it. The fire python said with a murderous aura. At that time, if I can come out of the 3rd floor alive, I promise to bring its head to you. Qin Feiyang said, Thank you. The fire python smiled gratefully. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, But the problem now is that when we leave, the divine ruin will close. How will I come in? You don't have to worry about this. I already know how to come in. The fire python said. Really? Qin Feiyang was delighted. Yes. When I first became a guardian, there were many things that I didn't understand. But after this period of research and listening to Lord Beast God's explanation, I basically know the divine ruin like the back of my hand. One of them is the way to enter the divine ruin. According to what I know, in a place called the Sea of Reincarnation, there is an altar that allows one to enter the divine ruins. And this altar doesn't need the 10 types of alchemy fire. It can be opened at any time. The fire python said, The reincarnation sea? Qin Feiyang was stunned and said in surprise, Are you sure it's the reincarnation sea? You know about the reincarnation sea? The fire python looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. If the reincarnation sea you're talking about is the same as the reincarnation sea I know, then this reincarnation sea is in my territory. Qin Feiyang said. The fire python said happily, Then you must be very familiar with the reincarnation sea. To tell you the truth, I've only been there once, and I didn't go deep. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. In that case, the fire python pondered for a moment and shook its head. Then we can only wait for you to go out and slowly look for it. The reincarnation sea is boundless. If you don't have clear coordinates or some landmark, finding an altar is more difficult than ascending to the heavens. Qin Feiyang sighed. The fire python said, I don't know the location of this altar, but I heard Lord Beast God say that it's somewhere in the deep sea. See? Somewhere. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. Qin Feiyang. The fire python said, I also want to help you, but this is all I know. You can only rely on yourself to find the rest. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and asked, Have you been to the ancient realm? After I brought you to the 2nd level, I made a trip to the ancient realm. According to my emperor, the reincarnation earthed it. Furthermore, I also discovered that the living creatures living in the ancient realm seem to have something similar to the demon imprint on their bodies. The fire python said, "Demon mark." Qin Feiyong was shocked. "It's not the demon mark, it's just similar. And this kind of mark is not like the demon mark on the skin of the chest, but on the soul of the living." The fire python said, "Imprint on the soul." Qin Feiyong was shocked and said, "Doesn't this mean that this mark can no longer be erased?" "I'm not sure about that, but the nature of this mark is extremely similar to the demon mark. With this mark, the living beings inside are unable to leave the ancient realm. If they forcefully leave, they will immediately suffer the backlash of the mark and be destroyed." The fire python said, "Immediately suffer the backlash? This is even more terrifying than the demon mark." Qin Feiyong was shocked. Although those who were entangled by the demon mark were unable to break free from the shackles of the Black Tortoise realm, they could still stay outside for 3 months. In other words, after 3 months, they would suffer the backlash of the demon mark. That's right. In this aspect, it's indeed more terrifying than the demon mark. Originally, I also wanted to understand more, but I was suddenly pulled out by Lord Beast God's great power. The fire python shook its head regretfully. "You were pulled out?" Qin Feiyong was surprised. "Yes. It gives me the feeling that Lord Beast God doesn't want me to interfere with the matters of the ancient realm." The fire python said with a trace of suspicion between its brows. Qin Feiyong said, "Then it seems that the ancient realm must be hiding some secrets." The fire python nodded. Qin Feiyong pondered for a while and asked, "Brother Fire, can you send me to the ancient realm again?" "Go to the ancient realm now." The fire python was stunned and asked suspiciously, "You're not going back?" Qin Feiyong said, "Of course I'm going back, but before I go back I want to go to the ancient realm to get some soul stones." "Are you talking about this kind of crystal?" The fire python took out a gray crystal. Qin Feiyong's eyes lit up and he nodded. Yes, that's it. This thing has the ability to condense divine sense, and its effect is better than the spirit congealing pill. I know that, but according to my observation, this kind of crystal is very rare even in the ancient realm." The fire python said, "I know, but now my matter is basically settled. I can slowly look for it." Qin Feiyong said, "1 soul stone could condense 100 strands of divine sense. In other words, as long as he gathered 1,000 soul stones, he could step into the war god realm in a very short time. At that time, he would have nothing to fear when fighting against the demon ancestor and Mu Tianyang." The fire python pondered for a moment, gritted its teeth, and nodded. "All right, I'll send you again, but you only have 3 days." "How can 3 days be enough?" Qin Feiyong frowned. "Only 3 days. Before I came to find you, the beast god left the miracle and said that he would return in 3 days. So, you must find enough soul stones within these 3 days and leave the ancient realm. Otherwise, when it returns and finds out that you've entered the ancient realm again, it will definitely think that I'm secretly helping you again. At that time, the beast god will be angry, and I'm afraid that I won't be able to keep my position as the guardian." The fire python said. Qin Feiyong was surprised. "The small beast left the miracle." "Yes, the beast god doesn't always stay in the miracle." The fire python said. "Then where did he go?" Qin Feiyong asked curiously. "How would I know?" The fire python couldn't help but roll its eyes at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong smiled embarrassedly and nodded. "All right, 3 days it is." The fire python helped him so much. If he implicated the fire python, he would feel uneasy. The fire python said, "Then there's no time to lose. Quickly go and make the arrangements." Qin Feiyong looked down at the mysterious madam, and then in a flash he landed beside the golden divine leopard. Zhao Tailai asked curiously, "Young master, what were you talking about up there?" "Nothing." Qin Feiyong shook his head and turned to the mysterious madam and Yi Shu, smiling. "I have something to do at the last minute, and I have to deal with it, with the fire python. Why don't you go to the vacuum zone between the 2nd and 1st level and wait for me?" The mysterious madam asked with concern, "What is it? Do you need help?" "It's nothing." Qin Feiyang smiled and turned his head to look at Tang Hai and Zhao Tailai. He warned them, "You too follow great-grandmother. You must protect her well. Take Shui Song with you as well, just in case." "Yes," the two replied respectfully. Qin Feiyang said again, "Junior Leopard, you follow me." "Roger." The Golden Divine Leopard shouted. "Be careful." Qin Feiyang reminded Tang Hai and Zhao Tailai again, and then led the Golden Divine Leopard into the air. But suddenly, he stopped again. "What's wrong?" The Golden Divine Leopard looked at him suspiciously. "I seem to have forgotten something," Qin Feiyang muttered. "What is it?" The Golden Divine Leopard was surprised. "I can't remember at the moment." Qin Feiyang took a step forward. He lowered his head and pondered while walking towards a fire python. Suddenly, his gaze trembled. "Yan Wei." "That's right. It's Yan Wei." Ever since the battle broke out, he had not seen Yan Wei. He glanced around and then looked at Tang Hai and the other man. He whispered, "Have you seen Yan Wei?" "Yan Wei?" The two were stunned. After thinking carefully for a moment, Zhao Tailai whispered, "I think I saw him being sent into the Space Divine item by Zhuge Mingyang when the battle broke out. Yes, there's also Zhuge Mingyang's Space Divine item." Qin Feiyang's body trembled. Yan Wei and Zhuge Mingyang's Space Divine items were what he had overlooked. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, "Junior Leopard, quickly search with your divine thoughts and see if Zhuge Mingyang's Space Divine item is still there." The Golden Divine Leopard immediately released his divine thoughts. Yi Shu and the mysterious lady also released their divine thoughts and started a carpet search. No. A moment later, the Golden Divine Leopard shook his head. Yi Shu said, "Could it be that Zhuge Mingyang's Space Divine item has been shattered together with Zhuge Mingyang?" "No. Zhuge Mingyang's Space Divine item can't even be shattered by the power of rules of the miracle, let alone Big Cousin. The Space Divine item must still be there." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Then why can't we find his Space Divine item?" Everyone was suspicious. Qin Feiyang's brows were tightly knitted. First of all, he could be sure that Yan Wei's life was not in danger, because Lu Jiajin's strength was unable to break through the defense of the Space Divine item. But the problem was, why did Zhuge Mingyang's Space Divine item disappear? Wait a minute. Suddenly, he thought of the Space Divine item that saved the State Preceptor and Emperor Hong and kidnapped Zhao Tailai. Could it be that that was Zhuge Mingyang's Space Divine item? But that wasn't right either. Zhuge Mingyang was dead, and no one could control that Space Divine item. Could it be Zhuge Mingyang was actually not dead? Boom! Thinking of this, it was as if Qin Feiyang was suddenly enlightened and came to a realization. That's right. Zhuge Mingyang was definitely not dead. At that time, the person who saved the State Preceptor and Emperor Hong and kidnapped Zhao Tailai was definitely him. But Zhuge Mingyang's death was obvious to everyone. Now that they suddenly found out that he was not dead, it was really hard to accept. What the hell is going on? Brother Qin, are you still going or not? At this time, the fire python's urging voice sounded. Qin Feiyang came back to his senses and nodded. I'm going. The fire python said, "Then hurry up, time is of the essence." Yes, Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at Zhao Tailai and the other three. "Zhuge Mingyang is most likely not dead yet. You must be careful on your way back." What? Not dead? How is that possible? The four of them were tongue-tied. I also hope that he is dead, but some things are hard to predict. In short, you guys should be careful. Qin Feiyang warned, and then rushed to the front of the fire python with the golden leopard. The fire python immediately brought them away and disappeared without a trace. Genius remembered the address of this site in a second. Mobile version of reading website, M. Chapter 1763. Zhuge Mingyang isn't dead. That shouldn't be. He was burned to ashes by Lu Jiajin's fire phoenix power. We saw it with our own eyes. Yi Shu looked at the mysterious lady and Tang Haiyan frowned. The mysterious lady also frowned. This matter was indeed unacceptable. However, this was said by Qin Feiyang, so it shouldn't be false. It seems that we have to be careful. The mysterious lady murmured, looked at Zhao Tailai and Tang Hai and said, "You should know what Qin Feiyang and the fire python are doing." Zhao Tailai and Tang Hai looked at each other and shook their heads. To be honest, we don't know what the young master is doing this time. Really? The mysterious lady looked doubtful. Absolutely. Zhao Tailai smiled helplessly. The first floor of the divine site, in the sky above a desolate mountain range. Qin Feiyang, the fire python, and the golden divine leopard appeared out of thin air. The golden divine leopard glanced below and smiled. You came to the first floor, just like that. It's great to follow the guardian. The fire python was taken aback and said in amusement, "Are you flattering this emperor?" Yes, we'll be family in the future. Please take care of me, guardian." The golden divine leopard smiled flatteringly. The fire python's mouth twitched, and divine power surged out toward the mountain range below. Boom! The originally empty void suddenly trembled, and an ancient stone door appeared. The fire python looked at the stone door, then turned to Qin Feiyang and said in a deep voice, "Brother Qin, remember, you only have 3 days. Also, the last time I went in, I found an old man lurking at the entrance of the ancient world. This person's purpose is unknown, and his cultivation is not ordinary. You have to be careful of him." The fire python warned again. "Old man?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked, "What does he look like?" "White-haired, wearing black linen clothes, holding a walking stick in his hand, and his cultivation is higher than mine. He's a war god of small success," the fire python said. "White-haired, linen clothes, walking stick, low success stage war god," Qin Feiyang murmured. Suddenly, he looked at the golden divine leopard and exclaimed, "It can't be him, right?" The golden divine leopard thought for a moment and said, "According to the Lord Guardian's description, it should be him." "Who?" the fire python asked. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. "It's a long story. I'll tell you about it when I have time." "All right." The fire python nodded. Qin Feiyang jumped up and landed on the back of the golden leopard. Then the golden leopard carried Qin Feiyang and entered the stone door without looking back. Very soon, a man and a beast appeared in the ancient realm once again. It was exactly the same as the last time he was here. The dilapidated square, the dilapidated stone gate, the ground riddled with holes, the murky sky, and the decaying aura that permeated the air made people feel extremely depressed. At the same time, several hundred li away, there was a low, bare hill. At the top of the mountain, a white-haired old man in black clothes was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. This aura! It seems to be Qin Feiyang. As soon as Qin Feiyang appeared, the old man's eyebrows immediately crept up with a hint of surprise. He then opened his eyes and looked towards the entrance. When he saw Qin Feiyang and the golden divine leopard standing in the square, the old man's eyes suddenly had a trace of joy. It was really him. The old man immediately got up and flew towards Qin Feiyang and the golden divine leopard. The golden divine leopard raised his eyebrows and said in a low voice, "Young master, there's a human aura approaching us." When Qin Feiyang heard this, he immediately became vigilant and scanned his surroundings. It's really him. When he saw the old man, Qin Feiyang shook his head helplessly and smiled. That's right. That old man was Guo Zixiong's second uncle, Guida. What is he doing here? Is he waiting for us? But that's not right. He didn't know that we would come in now. How could he be waiting for us? The golden divine leopard was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said, Perhaps he and Gua Zixiong guessed that we would come to the ancient world again sooner or later. That's why they have been waiting here. The golden divine leopard was stunned and laughed slyly. It seems like Gua Zixiong is quite concerned about your son-in-law. Don't talk nonsense. Qin Feiyang glared at it fiercely and snorted coldly. Concerned? I think he's a little too concerned. Too concerned? What do you mean? The golden divine leopard looked at Qin Feiyang in confusion. Even though the Guo family and our ancestor had a marriage agreement, so many years have passed. No matter how good their relationship was, it would have gradually faded. Furthermore, we don't know if our ancestor is dead or alive now. The Guo family is much more powerful than us. Do you think that they would still care about a marriage agreement? If you were in their shoes, would you care? Qin Feiyang said. The golden divine leopard was shocked. You mean that the Guo family shouldn't have any ulterior motives? I don't know if they have any ulterior motives. But I'm sure that it's not that simple. Qin Feiyang said. The golden divine leopard said. Could it be that you're too suspicious and Guo Zixiong is actually a very loyal person? If that's the case, that's naturally for the best. But before we figure out Guo Zixiong's character, we can't let our guard down. Qin Feiyang said. That's true. The golden divine leopard nodded. Guida was a lower success god of war. Guo Zixiong was a Desheng god of war. One could imagine how terrifying the Guo clan strength was. If the Guo family really had ulterior motives and they were not careful, the consequences would be unimaginable. Swoosh! Guoda teleported over and landed in front of Qin Feiyang. He chuckled and said, I didn't expect that we would meet again so soon. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. He cupped his hands and said, Junior Qin Feiyang greets Elder Guo. Guoda chuckled and said, We'll be a family soon. There's no need to be so polite. A family? Qin Feiyang was speechless. They weren't even together yet. But on the surface he smiled and asked, Elder Guo, where's Uncle Guo Zixiong? Guoda smiled and said, He's busy with the family affairs. When you left the ancient world, your Uncle Guo had already returned. But before he left, he told me to pick you up and escort you safely to the family. Escort me to the family? Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. Guoda said there's no time to lose. Let's go back now. Qin Feiyang looked a little troubled. What's wrong? Guoda looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang jumped down from the back of the golden leopard and said, Elder Guo, to be honest, I didn't come to the ancient world to visit the Guo family. Then why? Guoda was startled and asked in confusion. Soul stones. This junior has come here to look for soul stones. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered slightly as he said, calmly, Since the Guo family cared so much about him, why didn't he take the opportunity to ask for more soul stones? He believed that with the Guo family's strength, it wouldn't be difficult to find 1,000 soul stones. Similarly, he could also test the Guo family at the same time. Look for soul stones? Guoda was startled and said with a frown, Didn't I already give you a lot last time? Elder, you don't know, but the situation outside is very unfavorable for me. Strong enemies from all sides are ready to strike. I must reach the divine battle realm as soon as possible to survive this tribulation. Qin Feiyang sighed and said worriedly, I see. Guoda came to a sudden realization. He pondered for a moment and said, Although the soul stone can allow you to become a war god in a short period of time, I told you last time that the soul stone is extremely precious even in our Gu realm. I know, but now this is the only way. Even if it's not easy to find, you have to try your best. Qin Feiyang said. Guoda frowned and lowered his head in silence. The golden leopard said, We've already said it so clearly, but he still doesn't understand what we mean. His eyesight is too bad. How can someone of his age and cultivation not understand what we mean? Maybe the Guo family doesn't have many soul stones left. Qin Feiyang thought. After a while, Guoda looked up at Qin Feiyang and asked, "How many more soul stones do you need?" 1,000, Qin Feiyang said. What? 1,000? Guoda was petrified. Looking at his reaction, 1,000 soul stones seems to be beyond the scope of what the Guo family can bear. The golden leopard said, "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded without leaving a trace. "You're asking for too much. I'm afraid that even if you search a few million miles, you won't be able to gather that many." Guoda came back to his senses and shook his head. "Really?" the golden leopard asked. "Really?" Guoda nodded. "Then what should we do?" The golden leopard was like an ant on a hot pan, pacing around anxiously. Guoda's eyes flashed and said, "I have a suggestion, but I don't know if you want to hear it." "What suggestion?" Qin Feiyang asked. Guoda said, "From now on, you can stay in the ancient world and don't bother about the outside world." This, Qin Feiyang and the golden leopard looked at each other. Man walks to the top, water flows to the bottom. The resources and environment in the ancient world are better than outside. I can guarantee that you'll have a better future if you stay here. Guoda said. Environment. The golden divine leopard looked around and frowned. Let's not talk about the resources for now, but this environment seems to be much worse than the outside world. Qin Feiyang nodded. That's because you haven't understood the ancient world. What you see now is just the tip of the iceberg. Guoda smiled. What? Just the tip of the iceberg? Qin Feiyang and the golden leopard were in disbelief. Guoda looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, "Just do as I say. Stay in the ancient world, marry Xiaoqi, carry on the family line, and love each other for the rest of your life." How blissful, how perfect. Xiaoqi? Qin Feiyang was doubtful. Guoda said, "Xiaoqi is my grandniece and also your fiancée. Her full name is Guosweki. She has been smart since she was young, and her talent is far beyond ordinary people. She can be said to be a perfect match for you." Perfect match? Qin Feiyang's face twitched. He hadn't even met Guosweki yet, and he didn't even know what she looked like. It was too exaggerated to say that they were a perfect match. Please remember the domain name of this book. Literature Library Mobile Version website. Chapter 1764. Let's go. Guoda pulled Qin Feiyang and soared into the air. "Old senior, wait a moment." Qin Feiyang hurriedly broke free. Guoda frowned and said, "It's just some mundane matters. Why are you thinking so much?" There was a hint of anger and impatience in the depths of his old eyes. "Young master, what should we do now? This old man is clearly trying to force you to stay here." The golden divine leopard thought to himself. "Don't worry, I have a way." Qin Feiyang sent a voice transmission and looked at Guoda with a sigh. "I'm indeed very tempted by what you've said, old senior. Then what are you hesitating for?" Guoda was puzzled. "Let me finish first. I don't know whether my mother is dead or alive. My father's attitude towards me is also like that of a stranger. Furthermore, the great Qin Empire is currently in an abyss of suffering. The great Qin Empire is the empire left behind by my ancestor and is his life's work. As a descendant of the Qin clan and the only successor of my ancestor, how can I not care?" Qin Feiyang said. This, Guoda raised his brows. "Of course, I want to live a peaceful life. However, as a man, I have to shoulder these responsibilities. I'm sure you don't want Xiaoqi to marry a cowardly and incompetent person, right?" Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Guoda remained silent, and his eyes flickered. The golden divine leopard sent a voice transmission. "What's the point of saying all this?" "Don't worry, I haven't used my ultimate move yet." Qin Feiyang chuckled in his heart. "What ultimate move?" The golden divine leopard was curious. "You'll know soon." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed as he looked at Guoda and said, Furthermore, I've only been here for 3 days. 3 days? Guoda was stunned and asked suspiciously, What do you mean? When I entered the ancient world, I accidentally bumped into the guardian of the divine ruins. Junior has tried every possible way to persuade it. That's the answer. Give Junior 3 days. If we don't return within 3 days, it will personally enter the ancient realm and obliterate us. Qin Feiyang said. As expected, it's an ultimate move. The golden leopard laughed sinisterly. Guardian of the miracle, Guoda frowned. Something's not right. Suddenly, Guoda's eyes flashed as he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Little guy, you're lying. How could this be? Qin Feiyang said hurriedly. However, he was extremely shocked. How did this old man know that he was lying? This old man remembers that the ancient world is on the first level of the divine sight. On the other hand, there's a restriction on the first level of the divine ruins. Those above the semi-divinity realm aren't allowed to enter. You and this leopard, one is a false god, and the other is an early stage war god. But you were able to enter the first level and find the entrance to the ancient realm. There is only one explanation for this. The guardians of the divine remnants helped you enter the ancient realm. Guoda said. The golden leopard secretly said. Damn, he actually knows so much about the divine remnants. What's the use of knowing? We'll deal with whatever comes our way. Don't panic. Qin Feiyang sneered inwardly as he looked at Guoda. Old Senior's words are correct. However, Junior was fortunate enough to obtain a small world called the Black Tortoise World on the first floor. This small world is capable of blocking the power of the miracles. Black Tortoise Realm. Guoda's eyes trembled. Qin Feiyang's pupils constricted as he asked, Old Senior also knows about the Black Tortoise Realm. I've heard of it. Guoda lowered his head, a ray of light flashing in the depths of his eyes. After a long time, he raised his head to look at Qin Feiyang and asked, Is the Black Tortoise Realm really on you? Qin Feiyang nodded. Guoda said, Can you bring this old man to take a look? Qin Feiyang was a little hesitant. Guoda said unhappily, We're about to become a family. Are you still worried about this old man? There's no such thing. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand and smiled. If old Senior wants to go, then go. It's nothing. Finished. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and brought Guoda and the golden leopard to the sky above the undead mountain range. Guoda immediately looked around, his eyes filled with surprise. Then, he released his spirit sense again, covering the sky and earth in all directions. Everything entered his eyes. He was extremely shocked. It was actually so big, and there were so many living beings. After a long time, Guoda retracted his spirit sense and looked at Qin Feiyang. Is this really an independent small world? Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the rule force appeared out of thin air, surging from all directions. Feeling the terrifying pressure brought about by the rule force, Guoda clenched his fists, and greed filled the depths of his eyes. But soon, that greed faded away. Guoda nodded his head and laughed. Not bad, not bad. This is indeed an independent small world. Qin Feiyang laughed, and then brought Guoda and the golden leopard away from the Black Tortoise Realm. He cupped his hands and said, Senior, time is of the essence. I won't chat with you any longer. With that, he jumped onto the back of the golden leopard and said, Hurry up and find the soul stone. All right, the golden leopard shouted, and then brought Qin Feiyang with it, as fast as lightning. Guoda turned around and looked at the backs of Qin Feiyang and the golden leopard and laughed sinisterly. I really didn't expect that this kid would actually obtain an independent small world. The heavens are truly helping my Guo family. Then he soared into the sky, and while chasing after Qin Feiyang, he shouted, Feiyang, wait a moment. Qin Feiyang was startled. He stopped the golden leopard and turned to look at Guoda suspiciously. Guoda flew in front of Qin Feiyang and shook his head. Feiyang, don't blame this old man for pouring cold water on you. Not to mention 3 days. Even if it's 3 years, 30 years, you won't be able to find 1,000 soul stones. Then what should we do? Qin Feiyang asked in a panic. Don't worry. There must be a way. How about this? You go back with this old man now and discuss it with your Uncle Gua. Guida said. The golden leopard sent a sound transmission. Young master, if we go with him, I'm afraid we won't be able to leave. Qin Feiyang thought, I have the same feeling. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Let's just make a trip there. If they really have evil intentions, once we get enough soul stones, we'll enter the Black Tortoise realm and leave immediately. The golden leopard sent a sound transmission. All right. Qin Feiyang gritted his teeth and was about to speak. Boom! However, at this moment, a terrifying aura suddenly appeared at the stone door. Qin Feiyang, the golden leopard. Guada was shocked and quickly looked up, only to see a half-meter-long snake appear in front of the stone door. That's it. Guada was stunned. Qin Feiyang and the golden leopard looked at each other, but there was a trace of suspicion in their eyes. This small snake was none other than the fire python. What was the fire python doing here? Whoosh! Qin Feiyang quickly flew over and said respectfully, Greetings, Lord Guardian. Lord Guardian. Guada was stunned and turned to the golden leopard, asking, It's the guardian of the divine ruins. Yes. The golden leopard nodded and said, You've seen it before. Yes. Last time, after you left, it came here. At that time, this old man was still puzzled. Why would a fire python enter the ancient world, and a war god at that? So it's the guardian. Guada whispered. At the same time, the fire python also looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Lord Guardian? Qin Feiyang didn't usually call it that. It glanced at the golden leopard, and when it saw Guada, it immediately understood. Qin Feiyang had run into trouble and was secretly asking for help from it. The fire python's eyes flashed, and it looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Come with me immediately. Lord, didn't you say you would give me 3 days? Why do we have to go out now? Qin Feiyang said anxiously. The fire python said angrily, Do what I tell you to do. Why are you asking so many questions? This, Qin Feiyang frowned. What should we do now? The golden divine leopard was also at a loss of what to do. What else can we do? Although this guardian's strength is not much, we can't afford to offend him. You can only go with him. Guida said angrily. The golden leopard said anxiously, But we haven't found the soul stone yet. Our enemy this time is very powerful. If the young master can't break through to the war god realm, he will definitely die. Die, Guida murmured. No. I must not let Qin Feiyang die outside. Don't worry, this old man will think of a way. Guida pondered for a moment, flew to Qin Feiyang's side, and cupped his hands to the fire python. Guida greets, Lord. What's the matter? The fire python looked at him coldly. Guida begged, Lord, can you give us some time? For what? The fire python raised its eyebrows. I have something to give to Qin Feiyang, but I don't have it with me now, so I have to go back and get it. But don't worry, Lord, it won't take too long, at most a day and a half. Guida said. This, the fire python pretended to think, but secretly it was asking Qin Feiyang. Let him go. Qin Feiyang thought to himself. The fire python said impatiently, All right, go quickly and come back quickly. Thank you, Lord. Guida cupped his hands and thanked him, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, You must wait for this old man here. Okay. Qin Feiyang replied secretly. Whoosh! Then Guida teleported and flew away like lightning. After Guida disappeared, the golden leopard smiled and landed beside Qin Feiyang and the fire python, saying, This old man must have gone back to get the soul stone. Qin Feiyang was also full of smiles. He gratefully looked at the fire python and said, Brother Hua, you're truly a timely rain. You've helped me once again. Yes, although we are not afraid of them, if we really go to the Guo family with him, we will definitely be in some trouble. The golden leopard said, I was worried that something would happen to you here, so I specially came to take a look. I didn't expect to run into them by accident. But what is going on? The fire python looked at them suspiciously. Qin Feiyong swept his gaze around. Since he had time right now, he began to explain the situation and the matter of the marriage contract in detail. Qin Batian has been here? The fire python was surprised to hear that. Qin Feiyong nodded. Marriage contract. Qin Batian, the fire python pondered for a while and said, The Guo family sent someone to wait for you here, and they were too enthusiastic, so you suspect that the Guo family might have some ulterior motives towards you. That's right, Qin Feiyong said. Based on what you said, it is indeed a little unusual. It is not wrong to be careful. The fire python smiled. Yes, you may know a person for a long time without understanding their true nature. Who knows what they are thinking? But this time, it is all thanks to Brother Fire that we were able to get a large number of soul stones without any effort. I am really grateful, Qin Feiyong said with a smile. You don't have to be so polite with me. The fire python shook its head and said, By the way, there is another situation that I forgot to tell you before. Please remember the domain name of this book. The mobile version of the literature website. Chapter 1765. Qin Feiyong was stunned. He looked at the fire python in confusion and asked, What's going on? The fire python said, It's about the altar in the reincarnation ocean. Qin Feiyong immediately became serious when he heard that it was about the altar. Although the altar can be activated anytime and anywhere without the 10 clusters of alchemy fire, it's not that easy to activate it. We need 10 war gods who are at least at the beginner stage to work together to barely revive the altar. The fire python said. What? Qin Feiyong was dumbfounded. The golden leopard was also so shocked that it couldn't close its mouth. It needed 10 gods of war, and it had to be activated in front of them. That was too exaggerated. The fire python smiled and said, After all, it's the passage to the divine sight. How can it be activated so easily? That's true. Qin Feiyong nodded. If anyone could activate the altar, wouldn't everyone be able to enter the divine sight? The fire python added, In addition, I have to remind you that you can't tell anyone about the altar except for the people you trust the most. Don't worry, I know even without you, Qin Feiyong said. Time passed bit by bit. Unknowingly, the sky darkened. The entire land gradually fell into deep darkness. Whoosh! Finally, accompanied by the sound of something breaking through the air, Guoda streaked across the night sky and landed in front of Qin Feiyong. He took out a cosmos bag and handed it to Qin Feiyong. Protect yourself. Don't forget that Xiaoqi is still waiting for you here. Thank you, Senior. After dealing with the matters outside, if I'm still alive, I'll definitely come back to give Uncle Guo and Xiaoqi an explanation. Qin Feiyong said. I'm relieved to hear that. Guoda nodded and smiled. Then I'll take my leave. Qin Feiyong cupped his fists and said, Go. Guoda waved and smiled. Qin Feiyong turned to the fire python and said respectfully, Lord Guardian, let's go. Whoosh! Immediately, the fire python, Qin Feiyong, and the golden divine leopard entered the stone door one after another and quickly disappeared from Guoda's sight. After they left, Guoda's eyes suddenly turned cold. Whoosh! In the meantime, a figure broke through the air and landed beside Guoda. Looking at the stone door, a cold light flashed in his eyes. This person was none other than Guo Zixiong. Guoda said angrily, It's all because of this damned guardian. Of all times, he appeared at the most crucial moment. Otherwise, Qin Feiyong would already be in our clan. What's the use of being angry? It is the guardian of the divine trace. Although it cannot control our ancient realm, the great figures behind it are not people we can offend. Guo Zixiong said with a rather grim expression. Then tell me, is it worth it? Last time, we gave him over 500 soul stones. Now, we're giving him another 1,000. We've given him almost all of our savings over the years. Gwuda said, it's worth it. As long as he comes to the ancient world again, as long as he marries Xiaoqi, everything will be worth it. Moreover, he has an independent small world. The value of this small world is not something the soul stones can compare to. Guo Zixiong smiled sinisterly. Gwuda said, that's what I'm worried about. What if he doesn't come to the ancient world in the future? With Qin Batian as a clue, do you think he won't come? Guo Zixiong smiled coldly and said, second uncle, you're already so old. Why don't you come back with me and send someone else to continue guarding here? No need. Moreover, I'm worried about the others. Gwuda said, all right then. Thank you for your hard work. Guo Zixiong smiled and turned to leave. Guo De looked at Guo Zixiong's back and said, Zixiong, the soul stones are the lifeline of the Guo clan. Whether it's robbing or buying, we have to get some as soon as possible. Who would be willing to sell something as precious as a soul stone? We can only rob. Guo Zixiong's eyes flashed, and he left without looking back. The first floor of the divine site. The golden divine leopard looked at Qin Feiyang anxiously and said, young master, look, is it a soul stone? Is there need to think? It must be. Qin Feiyang opened his Qinquan bag and took out a soul stone. He played with it in his hand with a smile on his face. When the fire python saw the soul stone, its eyes also lit up and asked, how many are there? Let me count. Qin Feiyang counted. A moment later, the smile on his face became brighter and brighter, and he said, there are a total of 1,100. So many? They even gave me an extra 100. They're really generous. The golden divine leopard was dumbfounded. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, it can be seen that they value me very much, but it's not the other way around. Could it be that you're really thinking too much? The golden divine leopard frowned. I hope so. Qin Feiyang sighed and took out the extra 100 soul stones. He handed them to the fire python and said with a smile, Brother Hua, you've helped me so much. I should have given you more. But the fire python smiled and said, all right, why are you saying this when we're brothers? Besides, I know about your situation, so there's no need to explain. After saying that, the fire python did not stand on ceremony and kept the 100 soul stones. Not only could the false god refine the soul stone, the war god could also refine it. For the fire python, it was also quite tempting. Qin Feiyang smiled. The words brother had an extraordinary meaning, because this meant that the fire python's attitude towards him had already exceeded the boundary of a friend. The fire python asked, what about now? Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said, I'm still a little worried about Tang Hai and the others. The fire python immediately closed its eyes and searched for the location of Tang Hai and the others. Swish! After a while, the fire python opened its eyes and an invisible force emerged. The next moment, the fire python took Qin Feiyang and the golden leopard and appeared in the sky above a mountain range on the second floor. Below, the mysterious lady Yi Shu, Tang Hai, and Zhao Tailai were hurrying on their way. We're back! The golden leopard shouted, and the four immediately stopped and looked up at Qin Feiyang. So fast! Zhao Tailai was stunned. The fire python looked at the four of them and said to Qin Feiyang, Brother Qin, I've told you everything. Let's part ways here. Brother Hua, take care. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said, Take care. After saying that, the fire python flickered and disappeared without a trace. Qin Feiyang looked at the place where the fire python disappeared and couldn't calm down for a long time. You can't bear to part with it, right? The golden leopard smiled. Yes. At first, I thought that we would become mortal enemies, but I didn't expect that we would become like brothers now. Qin Feiyang sighed. Actually, Us ferocious beasts are more reasonable than you humans. We are more sensible and value friendship. Cruel by nature, cold-blooded and heartless. These are all misconceptions you humans have about us. The golden leopard pursed his lips and added, Of course, we can't rule out that some beasts are really cold-blooded and cruel. There are also good and bad people among humans. It's all the same. Qin Feiyang smiled and took a step forward, landing beside Tang Hai and the other three. Zhao Tailai asked curiously, Young master, where did you go? Qin Feiyang took out a soul stone and said with a smile, Do you understand now? Seeing the soul stone, Zhao Tailai and Tang Hai suddenly understood. However, the mysterious lady and Yi Shu looked at the soul stone in Qin Feiyang's hand suspiciously. Zhao Tailai said, How was the harvest? The golden leopard chuckled and said, Is there a need to ask? You'll know when you see the smile on his face. Zhao Tailai glanced at Qin Feiyang's expression and asked sneakily, Young master, do Tang Hai and I have a share? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He looked at Zhao Tailai strangely and said, Old Zhao, you've changed. I've changed? Zhao Tailai was stunned and asked suspiciously, How have I changed? You've become like the white-eyed wolf and fatso. Your eyes light up when you see a treasure. Qin Feiyang said. Zhao Tailai smiled awkwardly and said, You can't blame me. Who doesn't want a treasure like a soul stone? It's useless even if you want it, because the soul stones here are just enough for me. I gave Brother Hua 100. Why don't you go and get them back? Qin Feiyang joked. This, Zhao Tailai's body stiffened and his face turned green. No matter how bold he was, he wouldn't dare to ask the fire python for soul stones. Hearing the conversation between Qin Feiyang and Zhao Tailai, the mysterious lady couldn't help but ask curiously, Kid, what's a soul stone? What's it used for? This, great-grandmother, it's better if you don't know. Qin Feiyang said. Why? The mysterious lady was suspicious. I'm afraid you'll bite off more than you can chew, because there are some things you can't touch. Qin Feiyang laughed mischievously. You're afraid I'll bite off more than I can chew? The mysterious lady was stunned. The veins on her forehead bulged, and she said angrily, Brat, you haven't even broken through to the war god realm, and you still have the nerve to say that to me? You're getting more and more presumptuous. I'll beat you up today. Come on, come on. Qin Feiyang made a face at the mysterious madam and immediately used the walk character formula to escape into the sky. Brat, you're pissing me off. Stop right there. The mysterious madam was so angry that she glared at him. She even used teleportation. Seeing this, Yi Shu and Zhao Tailai both smiled faintly. The golden leopard shook his head and said, I didn't realize that the young master has such a naive and cute side. Yi Shu smiled and said, He's still a child after all. Yeah, when I was his age, I was still eating, drinking, and playing. I even acted like a spoiled child in my parents' arms. Zhao Tailai shook his head. Tang Hai said, The ancients said that when the heavens are about to give a man a great responsibility, it will first torment his mind, tire his muscles and bones, starve his body, and empty his body. Stop, stop, stop. Zhao Tailai hurriedly waved his hand and said angrily, Can you stop talking about all these great principles? It's as if you're the only one who knows. Tang Hai looked at him coldly and said, The young master is definitely not an ordinary person. Do you think we're blind? Do we need you to tell us that? Zhao Tailai rolled his eyes. Don't you know that it's rude to interrupt others? You've been living like a dog for so many years, Tang Hai said coldly. Then he used teleportation and chased after Qin Feiyang and his companion. What did you say? Tang Hai, I dare you to say it again. Zhao Tailai roared and chased after him aggressively. Yi Shu looked at the two in a daze and muttered, Junior Leopard, are these people all so interesting? You call this interesting? It's obviously childish. You can actually interpret childish behavior as interesting. Looks like your IQ isn't that high. The golden leopard looked at Yi Shu with disdain, then shook his head and left. My IQ isn't high? Yi Shu was stunned. Then, he fumed with rage and chased after the golden leopard. Please remember the domain name of this book. Literature Museum Mobile Version website. Chapter 1766. The full moon hung in the sky, and the night was hazy. The earth seemed to be covered with a layer of silver, and in a certain valley, a mysterious force suddenly emerged. This force was invisible and colorless like a ghost. It quietly drilled into the bodies of the nearby beasts and plundered their chi and blood. The strangest thing was, these beasts didn't even notice that their chi and blood were being plundered. But not long after, as the beasts continued to fall and turned into dried corpses, it immediately caused an unprecedented panic. Countless beasts fled for their lives. The beast emperors in the nearby major regions heard the news and rushed over to check it out. But in the end, the beast emperors also fled in embarrassment. According to them, they couldn't get close to the valley at all, because the closer they got to the valley, the more terrifying the mysterious force was, and it was pervasive. Even the war god couldn't stop it. As time passed bit by bit, the area covered by the mysterious force was getting larger and larger. At first, it was only near the valley, but now it had covered tens of thousands of miles and was still expanding. No one knew when it would end. In short, the beasts in this area were all fleeing for their lives. In the blink of an eye, the sky gradually turned white. The sun slowly rose. Qin Feiyang and the others were fooling around, talking and laughing as they entered the sky above a vast lake. Roar! Suddenly, in the distant void, there was a deafening roar of beasts. Rumble! Following closely, both the earth and the void began to tremble at this moment, as if an unprecedented earthquake was approaching. What's going on? The group looked in the direction of the sound, their faces full of surprise. Rumble! The sound became more and more deafening. Soon, an extremely spectacular scene appeared in front of their eyes. The sky and the earth were all filled with beasts. There were war sage and war emperor level beasts. There were pseudo-god level beasts. There were even war god level beast emperors. Some were as big as mountains and some were as small as rocks. They were densely packed and boundless as they crazily surged towards the side. Their expressions were suffused with an unresolvable fear. Why is there a beast tide? Qin Feiyang and the others were surprised. Groups of beasts rushed over. Qin Feiyang and the others and the golden divine leopard kept dodging. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang saw a beast emperor among the beasts. It was a black eagle. Its body was as huge as a mountain, and it had the cultivation of the small completion stage. Don't block this emperor's path, scram! As it flew, it roared at the group of beasts in front of it. Whoosh! Qin Feiyang took a step forward and stood in front of the black eagle. You're courting death! Seeing that a human had suddenly run out to block its path, the black eagle immediately became ferocious. But when it saw Qin Feiyang's face, its pupils suddenly shrank. It quickly restrained its ferocious aura and said with a smile, "So it's Brother Qin. Please forgive me for offending you." "I'm fine." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and asked suspiciously, "Brother, what are you doing?" "Alas, you don't know. Just last night, a strange power suddenly emerged from a valley. As soon as this force appeared, it frantically plundered everyone's chi and blood. Furthermore, even this emperor was unable to stop the corrosion of that power. That was why we had no choice but to flee." Black Eagle sighed. Such a thing happened? Hearing this, the mysterious lady and Yi Shu's faces were full of shock. At the same time, Qin Feiyang, Zhao Tailai Tanghai, and the golden leopard looked at each other. A cold light flashed in their eyes at the same time. Strange power. It could plunder qi and blood. It was all-pervasive. Wasn't this the scene when Zhuge Mingyang was reincarnated? Qin Feiyang looked at the Black Eagle and asked, "Where's the valley?" "Follow the direction we escaped from and search for it. It'll take about half a day." "That's not right. You're still only a pseudo-god. It'll probably take 2 or 3 days to arrive," the Black Eagle said. The mysterious lady asked, "Feiyang, do you know something?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at the Black Eagle. "Brother, can you help us and bring us there?" The Black Eagle's eyes widened as it said angrily, "Aren't you sending this emperor to his death?" Qin Feiyang said, "Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to you." The Black Eagle was hesitant. Qin Feiyang said, "Trust me." The Black Eagle raised its eyebrows, gritted its teeth, and shouted, "Come on this emperor's back." "Thank you, brother." Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and thanked him. Then he jumped up and landed on the Black Eagle's back. The mysterious lady Yi Shu, Tang Hai, Zhao Tailai, and the Golden Leopard also jumped onto the Black Eagle's back. Chirp! Following closely, the Black Eagle let out a high-pitched cry, spread its wings, and flew away like lightning. Wherever it went, the beasts would make way. "Old Black, where are you going?" Soon, a few more beast emperors came over and looked at the Black Eagle suspiciously. The Black Eagle said, "Qin Feiyang wants to go to the valley to take a look. I'll send them there." "Qin Feiyang?" The beast emperors were stunned and looked at the Black Eagle's back. When they saw Qin Feiyang, they immediately greeted him enthusiastically. "Hello, Brother Qin!" "Hello, brothers." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Brother Qin, that mysterious force is not a child's play. We advise you not to go." "That's right. Look, even we are running for our lives, let alone you." "Brother Qin, please don't misunderstand. We don't mean to look down on you." The beast emperors were chattering. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "I know. Brothers, you are all concerned about me. That's good." The beast emperors heaved a sigh of relief. The Black Eagle glanced at the beast emperors, rolled his eyes, and suddenly said, "Why don't you come with us?" No. Brother Qin will part ways here. Take care." When the beast emperors heard the Black Eagle's words, they did not continue to persuade Qin Feiyang and immediately turned to leave. What a bunch of cowards! The Black Eagle despised them and continued to fly forward with Qin Feiyang and the others. The mysterious lady frowned and said, "Feiyang, what's going on?" "Zhuge Mingyang." Qin Feiyang said word by word. "Zhuge Mingyang? He's really not dead." The mysterious lady and Yi Shu looked at each other, their eyes full of surprise. Zhao Tailai said, "Young master, something's wrong." "What's wrong?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Zhuge Mingyang said before that he can only be reborn if he dies in your hands. But this time he died in the hands of your big cousin." Zhao Tailai said. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, "This is also what I can't figure out. Could he be lying to us? In fact, no matter who kills him, he can be resurrected." Tang Hai suddenly said. Qin Feiyang said, "At present, this is the only reasonable explanation. There's one more thing. Based on the previous situations, he should be resurrected at the place where he died. This time, Lu Jiajin killed him in the place where Mu Tianjun and the fiend ancestor were sealed. But now he is resurrected in another place. Although we haven't reached the valley yet, from the direction, we know that the two places are thousands of miles apart. What's going on?" Zhao Tailai said. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. Zhao Tailai asked, "Did you think of something?" Qin Feiyang said, "The fiend ancestor's consciousness. The fiend ancestor's consciousness?" Zhao Tailai was suspicious. "Yes, I originally thought that the fiend ancestor's consciousness had been obliterated by my big cousin. But now it seems that may not be the case." Qin Feiyang said, Then what is it? Zhao Tailai said. I think it should be the fiend ancestor's consciousness. Before Zhuge Mingyang died, he took away something that could allow Zhuge Mingyang to be reborn. And at that time, the person who drove the space divine object to save the state preceptor and Emperor, as well as the person who kidnapped you, should be the fiend ancestor. Qin Feiyang looked at Zhao Tailai and said. Hearing this, Zhao Tailai pondered for a moment and nodded. It seems that this is the only explanation that makes sense. Why are the young people nowadays so difficult to deal with? Young master is like this, and so is Zhuge Mingyang. Are they all the reincarnations of cockroaches? Tang Hai said, Do you know how to speak human language? Qin Feiyang's face darkened. Just mention Zhuge Mingyang. Why did he have to bring him into this? Reincarnation of cockroaches? Didn't he know that this was an insult? It's the truth. Tang Hai said indifferently. I'll endure it. Qin Feiyang glared fiercely at Tang Hai and took a deep breath. Time passed in the blink of an eye. A few hours later, Qin Feiyang suddenly noticed that the vitality in his body was also flowing away. Noticing this, Qin Feiyang's heart sank. He said, Quick, check your qi and blood. Is it leaking? The few of them and the golden leopard immediately closed their eyes to check the situation in their bodies. It's flowing away. Zhao Tailai was the first to open his eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang. Me too. Me too. The mysterious lady, Yishu, the golden leopard, and Tang Hai also opened their eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang. Black Hawk said, Brother Qin, do you have a way to stop the erosion of this power? No. Qin Feiyang shook his head. No. Black Hawk's gaze trembled as he said anxiously, Then if this continues, won't we all be finished? Actually, there is a way. Enter the castle or the Black Tortoise world. But if we enter the castle or the Black Tortoise world, our speed will slow down. By the time we reach the valley, Zhuge Mingyang might have already been reborn. Qin Feiyang said, because after entering the castle and the Black Tortoise world, he was the one who led everyone. With his current cultivation, his speed was far inferior to Black Hawk's. Then give us the castle. Although our cultivation is not as good as Black Hawk's, we are all stronger than you. The speed of driving the castle will also be faster than you. Zhao Tailai said, No, the castle is now sealed. We can only enter and leave. We can't give it to others. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Then what should we do? Back then, Zhuge Mingyang said that if he was reborn again, he would be able to step into the war god realm. So we must find a way to completely kill him before he is reborn. Zhao Tailai said. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. Suddenly, he looked at Zhao Tailai, Tang Hai, the mysterious lady, and Yishu and said respectfully, Everyone, please lend me a hand. What do you mean? The four of them were puzzled. If you want to help, then help. It's not like you're an outsider. Why are you being so polite? Please remember the domain name of this book. Literature, Museum Mobile Version website. Chapter 1767. Whoosh! As soon as Qin Feiyang finished speaking, streams of light shot out from their bodies. It was the hundreds of thousands of cedar trees. Zhao Tailai and the others were stunned. It turned out that Qin Feiyang was not talking to them. Hundreds of thousands of cedar trees, like a meteor shower, drilled into Qin Feiyang's body through his pores and merged into his flesh and blood. Immediately, a majestic life force filled every cell in his body. Thank you. Qin Feiyang expressed his gratitude in his heart, then looked at Zhao Tailai and the others and said, Go to the Black Tortoise world and wait for my news. Okay, Yishu and I haven't been to the Black Tortoise world yet. I'd like to see how magical that place is. The mysterious lady smiled. Qin Feiyang smiled and waved his hand, sending the four and the golden leopard to the Black Tortoise world. The Black Eagle carried him and continued on their journey. With the hundreds of thousands of cedar trees, the fire of life, and the purple-gold dragon blood, Qin Feiyang's body was equivalent to a spring of life. Even the Black Eagle could not help but be surprised by the majestic life force, and asked suspiciously, "Brother Qin, how did you do it?" Qin Feiyang briefly explained the situation. "TSK, TSK, TSK." The Black Eagle was speechless and said, "I really envy you." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "Don't force yourself. If you can't hold on, tell me." The Black Eagle said, "Don't worry, I won't play with you with my life." After all, it had the cultivation of an initial success stage god of war, and the vitality in its body was unimaginable. Zhuge Mingyang, on the other hand, had only broken through to the initial stage god of war, so he could not pose a threat to the Black Eagle for a while. Another 6 hours passed. The mysterious power that robbed the vitality became stronger and stronger. Even with the help of the cedar trees, Qin Feiyang's body was showing signs of drying up. The Black Eagle was the same. It had long lost its initial vitality as if it was sick. Along the way, they did not encounter any living, ferocious beasts. All of them had turned into dried corpses. As far as the eye could see, corpses were strewn all over the place. It was like a scene straight out of hell. It was a ghastly sight. Killing so many living beings, how abominable! Qin Feiyang's face darkened. The number of dead ferocious beasts could no longer be calculated with numbers. "Who is this Zhuge Mingyang? Does it sound scary?" Black Hawk asked suspiciously. "It's an old rival of mine." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with killing intent as he asked, "Can you still hold on?" "I can still hold on a little longer. You, on the other hand, although you have Xue Song helping you, your situation seems to be worse than mine." Black Eagle said worriedly, "I'm fine." Qin Feiyang said. In the blink of an eye, another 2 hours passed. Qin Feiyang's body was almost reduced to skin and bones. The hundreds of thousands of cedars that had taken root in his body also seemed dim and lifeless. "No, I've reached my limit," Qin Feiyang said. "I'm almost there too." Black Hawk said. Originally, his body was very strong, and he could feel the surging blood qi from afar. But now he also looked old and dispirited. "How far is it?" Qin Feiyang asked. "According to this emperor's speed, it will take at most another 4 hours. But if it's you—" When Black Eagle said this, he did not continue because his meaning was very clear. If it was Qin Feiyang, it would take even longer. Qin Feiyang sighed. "There's no other way. We can only go to the Black Tortoise world and hope that he won't revive so quickly." Black Hawk nodded. However, just as they were about to enter the Black Tortoise world, the mysterious force suddenly retreated like the tide. The blood qi in his body also stopped flowing. "What's going on?" Black Hawk was bewildered. Could it be? Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked in the direction of the valley. An uneasy premonition surged in his heart. The mysterious force disappeared. Could it be that Zhuge Mingyang had been reborn? But why didn't the lightning tribulation appear? One had to know that Zhuge Mingyang was the same as him. He had not comprehended the profound meaning of becoming a god. "Old Black, quickly!" Qin Feiyang urged. Black Hawk nodded, spread his wings, and like lightning, cut through the sky. At the same time, Qin Feiyang also released his divine sense, covering all directions. More than 2 hours passed. Suddenly, a space divine object in front entered Qin Feiyang's divine sense. Boom! Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed coldly, and the pseudo-god force emerged, separating heaven and earth. Boom! That space divine object collided with the pseudo-god force, and the pseudo-god force disintegrated on the spot. Puff! Qin Feiyang also immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Ha! Immediately after, a loud laugh rang out. A young man dressed in black appeared in the sky. If it wasn't Zhuge Mingyang, who else could it be? That long gray hair and gray eyes were filled with the aura of death. His body was also surrounded by gray flames. He stood in the sky with his hands behind his back, and his long hair fluttered in the wind, like a god of death descending, making people unable to help but feel a chill in their hearts. And his aura had already reached the initial stage of the god of war. "You are indeed lying to me," Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. "Lying to you?" Zhuge Mingyang was stunned and said suspiciously, "When have I lied to you?" "Back then, you said that you would only be reborn if you died in my hands. Then what is going on now?" Qin Feiyang said. "So it's this." Zhuge Mingyang suddenly understood and said with a smile, "This starts from the immortal demon technique that I cultivate." "Go ahead," Qin Feiyang said. Although the immortal demon technique can resurrect the dead, it also has a previous condition. The previous condition is that I have to die in the hands of the person I hate the most. In other words, if the person I hate the most kills me, I can be reborn. In the past, the person I hated the most was you, because you took everything away from me and killed my family. But when I was fighting with Lu Jiajin, his strength, his talent, and the humiliation he gave me made me transfer my hatred to him. Therefore, I was reborn and broke through to the god of war as I wished. Zhuge Mingyang said with a smile, "There is actually such a magical technique in the world." Hearing this, Black Eagle's heart was filled with disbelief. "So it's like this." Qin Feiyang also completely understood that this immortal demon technique was indeed a bit ridiculous. "Wait a minute. Only by dying in the hands of the person you hate the most can you be reborn. Does that mean that if he kills Zhuge Mingyang now, Zhuge Mingyang won't be able to be reborn?" "I know what you are thinking, but do you have the confidence to kill me now?" Zhuge Mingyang laughed proudly. Qin Feiyang was silent. To be honest, before he breaks through to the god of war, he doesn't have the confidence to kill Zhuge Mingyang. Moreover, even if you have the confidence, before I die, I can transfer my hatred to you again. At that time I will be reborn, and my strength will become stronger and stronger. Zhuge Mingyang laughed. "Damn it!" Qin Feiyang cursed in his heart. The current Zhuge Mingyang is equivalent to an immortal body. Black Eagle suddenly said, "Then if we don't kill you, will your strength forever remain at the initial stage of the god of war?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. He didn't think about this question before. Zhuge Mingyang's current method of breaking through was to place himself in a death trap and fight for survival. And the undying demon attack is so cruel it must have a flaw, which is the so-called side effect. Is there such a possibility? Zhuge Mingyang can't cultivate by himself now, and can only rely on being killed to break through? Whoosh! At the same time, Zhuge Mingyang glanced at Black Eagle, his eyes flashing with a terrifying light, and shouted, "Who do you think you are? Do you have the right to speak here?" Black Eagle raised his eyebrows and rushed into the sky with Qin Feiyang, laughing. "Kid, do you think you are awesome after breaking through to the god of war?" Zhuge Mingyang said, "I don't know if I am awesome or not, but killing you is as easy as flipping my hand." "Is that so? How dare you be so arrogant in the divine sight? Do you know that as long as I shout, you will become the public enemy of all the beast emperors on the second floor in half a day?" Black Eagle sneered. Zhuge Mingyang's pupils shrank, and he said in a deep voice, "You are a beast on the second floor." "That's right. Not only am I a beast emperor on the second floor, but I am also a god of war on the lower completion stage." "Arrogant, huh? Wait until I tell this to the Guardian. Even if you have heaven-defying means, don't even think about leaving the second floor. No, don't even think about leaving the divine sight. If you are trapped in the divine sight, what do you think will happen to you in the end?" Black Eagle joked. Zhuge Mingyang's face changed slightly, and he glanced at Qin Feiyang, his eyes full of jealousy. "What kind of charm does this bastard have? Why is there a beast helping him no matter where he goes? Qin Feiyang looked at Zhuge Mingyang deeply and comforted. Old Black, don't be impatient. At the same time, he was pondering. Why did Zhuge Mingyang have such a big reaction after hearing Black Eagle's words? Could it be, as he guessed before, that Zhuge Mingyang was no longer able to cultivate? Therefore, when Black Eagle accidentally exposed his weakness, he became angry out of embarrassment. It seemed that he had to find an opportunity to let Yan Wei investigate this matter. His eyes flashed, and he looked up at Zhuge Mingyang and asked, "You are the one who saved Emperor Hong and the state preceptor? With your brain, do you still need to ask me?" Zhuge Mingyang snorted coldly. Qin Feiyang said, "I thought of something, but it's just my personal thought, so I want to confirm it." "Then what do you think?" Zhuge Mingyang asked. Qin Feiyang said, "I guess it's the demon ancestor's consciousness. Before you died, he took away something that could allow you to be reborn." "That's right. Under the immortal demon technique, as long as there is a drop of blood left, a strand of hair, I can be reborn. At that time, when Lu Jiejin was trying to kill me, Master took a drop of my blood and entered the spatial divine object. He did this because he expected that you would definitely interfere, so he thought of taking me to a safe place to let me be reborn. As for the person who rescued the ancestor and Emperor Hong, as well as the person who kidnapped Zhao Tailai, it was also Master," Zhuge Mingyang said. "Sure enough," Qin Feiyang muttered. It was almost the same as what he had guessed. "Enough. Now that you have the beast on the second floor to support you, I can't afford to offend you. The grudge between us will be settled when we return to the great Qin Empire." Zhuge Mingyang smiled coldly, then entered the spatial divine object and left without looking back. Please remember the domain name of this book. Literature Museum Mobile Edition website. Chapter 1768. He's finally gone. Black Eagle let out a long sigh. Qin Feiyang was taken aback. He looked at Black Eagle suspiciously and said, "Weren't you quite fierce just now?" "That's all an act. Although I haven't fought with this Zhuge Mingyang and don't know how strong he is, the death aura he exudes makes me very nervous." Black Eagle said, "You're wise not to fight with him just now. His divine ability can deprive you of 4 small realms. Tell me, how are you going to fight with him then?" Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "What, deprive me of 4 small realms?" Black Eagle's eyes widened in anger. "Yes," Qin Feiyang nodded. "I'll do the math. Early stage, false god, peak 9-star combat emperor, 9-star combat emperor. Damn it, I'll be deprived of 9-star combat emperor. What's there to play with?" Black Eagle pouted. "You can't do it like that. Your cultivation is stronger than his, so the power of your divine ability should be weaker. However, his strength is unquestionable. Don't provoke him unless you have no other choice," Qin Feiyang warned. "Got it." Black Eagle nodded and said gratefully, "Thank you for your reminder, Brother Qin." Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Then let's part here. We'll meet again in the future." "Okay," Black Eagle nodded. When Qin Feiyang entered the Black Tortoise world, he discovered that only Tang Hai and Zhao Tailai were here. The mysterious lady, Yi Shu, the golden leopard, and the 9 beast gods who were ordered to guard the medicine field were not here. "Young master," seeing Qin Feiyang appear, Zhao Tailai hurried to greet him. "Where are great-grandmother and Yi Shu?" Qin Feiyang asked. Zhao Tailai said Junior Leopard and the 9 beast emperors took them to visit the Black Tortoise world. "I see." Qin Feiyang nodded. "How's the situation outside?" Zhao Tailai asked. "Just as we thought. Zhuge Mingyang has also broken through to War God." Qin Feiyang briefly explained the situation of the undying demon art. After Zhao Tailai heard this, he sighed and said, "This is going to be even more difficult." "Yeah. However, If Zhuge is really unable to cultivate now, it can be considered a good thing for us. Qin Feiyang smiled. Zhao Tailai said, "This is undeniable, but before it's confirmed, it's best not to have too much hope." Qin Feiyang nodded. Tang Hai suddenly asked, "When did you make this medicinal field?" "Last time, when you collected a large number of spiritual infant trees." "How was it?" "It's all right," Qin Feiyang said. "Yes." Tang Hai nodded. Qin Feiyang looked around and finally looked at the center of the herb field. That place turned out to be a plaza, which was also the entrance to the Black Tortoise Realm. And now, the plaza had disappeared, and in its place was a courtyard. Finally, it was a small building with a total of 2 floors. It looked very ordinary, but it was understandable. After all, the 9 beast emperors were all ferocious beasts. They could not have built such a beautiful and unique courtyard. However, the surroundings of the courtyard were very beautiful. More than a dozen lush green trees stood around the fence. There were also a few flower beds around the small building, competing for beauty and fragrance. A winding path started from the gate of the courtyard and wound around the entire courtyard. On the east side of the courtyard, next to the small building, there was a pavilion with a stone table and 4 stone benches. Qin Feiyang stepped into the courtyard and looked around. He smiled and nodded. "Not bad." As he spoke, he walked into the pavilion and waved at Zhao Tailai and Tang Hai. "It's rare that I have time to relax. Come over and let's have a few drinks." "A few drinks?" The two looked at each other, entered the pavilion, and sat at the stone table. Zhao Tailai asked suspiciously, "The imperial advisor and Mu Tianyang haven't been dealt with yet, right?" Qin Feiyang took out his Qingquan bag and searched for a long time before he found a jar of wine. He smiled. "I don't like to drink, so I didn't specially prepare it. Just make do with it. Young lord, wait a moment." Zhao Tailai took the wine jar and said, "There will be plenty of opportunities to drink in the future. The most important thing now is to rush to the vacuum between the 1st and 2nd floor." "Where are we going?" Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. "Of course, to leave the divine site. Are you confused? If we let Zhuge and the others go back first, they will definitely stir up trouble in the great Qin Empire," Zhao Tailai said. Qin Feiyang smiled. "Without me, they won't be able to go back." "Won't be able to go back?" Zhao Tailai was stunned. "What do you mean? To open the passage to the outside, we need the 10 clusters of alchemy fire, and 2 of them are with me now. Without me, do you think they can leave?" Qin Feiyang laughed. It turned out that he had 3 clusters of alchemy fire, but before entering the divine site, he gave 1 cluster to Emperor Hong, so there were only 2 left. "So that's how it is." Zhao Tailai suddenly realized and shook his head with a wry smile. "It turns out that young lord has a card up his sleeve." It seems this subordinate was overthinking. "No, actually, I quite like people like you, who say whatever comes to mind. Unlike some people who usually don't say a word and treat their words like gold. But when they suddenly spout out a sentence, they can anger people to death." Qin Feiyang coldly snorted. Zhao Tailai immediately glanced at Tang Hai and couldn't help but want to laugh. Tang Hai raised his eyebrows and looked at Zhao Tailai. "Why are you looking at me? What does it have to do with me?" No. Zhao Tailai quickly waved his hand. "Nonsense." Even a fool knew that Qin Feiyang was talking about Tang Hai, and this guy was still so calm, as if it had nothing to do with him. Qin Feiyang poured a glass of wine, lowered his head, and took a sip. "Actually, I have another purpose for staying here." "What is it?" Zhao Tailai was suspicious. Tang Hai also looked at him in confusion. "I need time to refine the soul stone and break through to the war god realm. And Mu Tianyang, Mu Tianjun, and Demon Ancestor also need time to fuse with the divine body. So whether it's me or them, after leaving the divine site, we will all hide for a while. In other words, the battle will not break out immediately. Qin Feiyong said. Zhao, Tai Lai nodded and said, we all know this, and then… Qin Feiyong smiled and said, but what if I refine the soul stone in the divine sight? Refine the soul stone in the divine sight? The two lowered their heads and pondered. Suddenly, Zhao Tailai's eyes lit up. He looked up at Qin Feiyong and said with a smile, I understand. Tell me about it. Qin Feiyong said with a smile as he drank. Young Master's plan is to refine the soul stone in the divine sight and break through to the war god realm. In this way, we can seize the opportunity. Because if young Master breaks through to the war god realm here, after leaving the divine sight, he doesn't need to hide anymore. Mu Tianyang and the others are different. They still need time to fuse with the divine body. And during the time they are fusing with the divine body, they won't be able to exert their peak strength, and this is our opportunity. Zhao Tailai said. That's right. Qin Feiyong nodded. Tang Hai said, what if they also start to fuse with the divine body in the divine sight? Qin Feiyong said, have you seen Mu Tianyang's divine body, Mu Tianjun and demon ancestor's divine soul? No. Tang Hai shook his head. That's right. The battle at the sealed land a few days ago was so fierce, but I didn't see Mu Tianyang's divine body, nor did I see the divine soul of Mu Tianjun and demon ancestor. What does this mean? This means that their divine bodies and divine souls have not entered the divine sight. If they haven't entered the divine sight, how can they fuse? Demon ancestor did send a wisp of divine consciousness in, but it's impossible to fuse with just a wisp of divine consciousness. Qin Feiyong laughed. Tang Hai said, if that's the case, we can indeed seize the opportunity. So let them wait in the vacuum area. After I break through to the war god realm, I'll slowly go and find them. Qin Feiyong said. You're such a thief. Tang Hai despised. Thief? Do you know how to talk? This is called strategy, understand? Qin Feiyong said angrily. Tang Hai said coldly, if you're not a thief, why would you think of such a strategy? I have a bad temper. Qin Feiyong suddenly became angry and said angrily, do you have to go against me? Young lord, calm down, calm down. Don't you know old Tang? He's just talking. Why bother with him? Come, come, let's drink. Zhao Tailai hurriedly stood up to smooth things over. Qin Feiyong shook his head, helplessly. In a word, he didn't have any prestige. If he was like the state preceptor and Mu Tianyang, would Tang Hai be so presumptuous? But there were gains and losses. Although he didn't have any prestige, he gained everyone's sincerity. This was also what he really wanted. Regardless of whether they were subordinates or friends, life would only be interesting if everyone stayed together happily. That evening, the Golden Leopard and the 9 Beast Emperors came back with the mysterious lady and Yi Shu. You're still in the mood to drink? When the mysterious lady saw Qin Feiyong and the other 2 sitting in the pavilion, drinking and chatting leisurely, the anger in her heart immediately surged. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, Great-grandmother, aren't you also quite free? How about it? Is the Black Tortoise realm to your liking? How can I be the same as you? The mysterious lady glared at him and asked, How is Zhuge Mingyang doing? Qin Feiyong smiled and said, You don't have to worry about this. Just enjoy your retirement here. The mysterious lady was furious. She turned to look at Yi Shu and asked, Am I old? This, Yi Shu complained in his heart. You two can bicker. But why do you have to make things difficult for me? All right, great-grandmother, don't be angry. I already have a plan. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, What plan? The mysterious lady was suspicious. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, When the time comes, you'll naturally know. So mysterious. The mysterious lady rolled her eyes at Qin Feiyong, but she was relieved. After all, she had watched Qin Feiyong grow up and knew Qin Feiyong inside out. Since Qin Feiyong said that he had a plan, then she had nothing to worry about. Chapter 1769. In the pavilion in the courtyard. Everyone was chatting happily. Late at night, Qin Feiyang finally got up and went into seclusion in the castle. Although the mysterious lady, Yi Shu, Zhao Tailai, Tang Hai, and the Golden Leopard had all entered the castle to stabilize their cultivation. Just like that, the days passed. On the 10th day after Qin Feiyang went into seclusion, Mu Tianyang and Zhuge Mingyang entered the vacuum zone one after another. Seeing that Zhuge Mingyang was still alive, Mu Tianyang was also very surprised. However, the two sides had a tacit understanding and didn't make a move. On the 20th day after Qin Feiyang went into seclusion, Mu Tianyang finally couldn't hold back his anger and said, "What is Qin Feiyang doing? Why isn't he here yet?" Zhuge Mingyang stood to the side and heard Mu Tianyang's words. He said coldly, "I saw him before coming here." "You saw him?" Mu Tianyang frowned. "Yes, but I thought he would come here immediately, so I didn't pay attention to his whereabouts." Zhuge Mingyang said in a low voice. Mu Tianyang said, "Is he still on the second floor?" "Impossible. He has already broken through to the semi-divinity realm, so there's no point in going there." "I think he's up to something again." Zhuge Mingyang snorted coldly. "This bastard really doesn't let me feel at ease for even a moment." Mu Tianyang cursed angrily. Zhuge Mingyang glanced at the stone door in the middle and suggested, "Why don't we work together and see if we can open the stone door without using alchemy fire?" "Naive. Qin Batian and I tried it the last time the miracle opened. We couldn't even open the stone door with our cultivation at the time, let alone you and me." Mu Tianyang snorted coldly. Zhuge Mingyang suddenly understood and said, "So you were all war gods at the small completion stage back then?" Mu Tianyang said, "Are you trying to trick me? Only now do I see it. Looks like you, the previous emperor, aren't that smart after all." Zhuge Mingyang sneered. Mu Tianyang's eyes flashed with killing intent. Zhuge Mingyang said with disdain, "You're just a war god at the initial success stage. You better not be arrogant in front of me, or else. You still want to take advantage of me?" Mu Tianyang raised his eyebrows and sneered, "Otherwise what?" "In the past, I was indeed very afraid of you. But now, even if you fused with the divine body, I don't care. Do you feel particularly aggrieved? Thinking back 10,000 years ago, you were a peerless figure who could stand shoulder to shoulder with the Qin Emperor. But today, after 10,000 years, not only has his strength not improved, he is even weaker than before. Even juniors like me and Qin Feiyang dare to ride on your head and behave atrociously?" The ridicule on Zhuge Mingyang's face was undisguised. "Aggrieved?" Mu Tianyang muttered. Indeed, he was very unwilling in his heart. Even 10,000 years ago, in the face of a peerless figure like Qin Batian, he was not the slightest bit afraid. But now, just two juniors had humiliated him time and time again. For the previous emperor, the dignified war god, it was simply a great humiliation. This was the so-called tiger that fell to the plains was bullied by dogs. He had secretly vowed in his heart more than once that once he fused with the divine body and recovered his peak cultivation, he would definitely make these people pay the price. He had to let them know that offending him, Mu Tianyang, was equivalent to offending the heavens. Suddenly, Zhuge Mingyang said, "Mu Tianyang, I have a good suggestion. I don't know if you want to hear it." "Let's hear it." Mu Tianyang's eyes flashed and said, "Let's work together to get rid of Qin Feiyang and Tantai Li. At that time, the great Qin Empire will belong to me, the forgotten continent will belong to you, and we will rule the world together." Zhuge Mingyang said, "You're quite ambitious." Mu Tianyang sneered. Zhuge Mingyang said proudly, "As a man, how can I not have some ambition? What do you think of my suggestion?" Mu Tianyang said, "Is this your idea, or your master, demon ancestors?" "My master doesn't care about this at all. What he wants is Qin Feiyang's life, Because he wants Qin Batian to regret it, Zhuge Mingyang said. Don't tell me he doesn't want my life. You must know that back then it was me and Qin Batian who worked together to get rid of him. Mu Tianyang sneered. Isn't this forced by the situation? Master did want to get rid of you in the past, but now the situation is different. If we fight on our own, I'm afraid that in the end, no one will be able to gain an advantage, Zhuge Mingyang said. Mu Tianyang's eyes flashed, and a moment later he smiled. I will consider this proposal carefully. Then I'll wait for the good news. Zhuge Mingyang laughed. Time flew and half a year passed. In other words, Mu Tianyang and Zhuge Mingyang had already waited here for half a year. This hateful guy, what exactly is he doing? Now, not only Mu Tianyang, but even Zhuge Mingyang couldn't help but be angry. Whoosh! Suddenly, a young man in black rushed out of the stone door on the first floor and entered the vacuum zone. And Mu Tianyang and Zhuge Mingyang turned their heads to look, and a trace of surprise crept up between their brows. You actually came to the divine site too? Zhuge Mingyang said. Is it strange that I came to the divine site? Why did you and Qin Feiyang have the same reaction when you saw me? The young man in black frowned. That's right. This person was Dong Xingyang, and his cultivation had already stepped into the false god realm. Zhuge Mingyang was stunned and said in a deep voice, When did you see Qin Feiyang? A long time ago. After Dong Xingyang finished speaking, he glanced at Mu Tianyang, and a trace of light flashed in the depths of his eyes and said, Should I call you Lu Xingchen? Or should I call you the emperor of the previous dynasty? It's just a name. You can call me whatever you want. Mu Tianyang smiled faintly and said, But I'm curious. Why did you come up from the first floor? What's so strange about that? Dong Xingyang was puzzled. As everyone knows, no matter who it is, once anyone breaks through to the false god realm on the first floor, they will immediately be sent to the second floor. So logically speaking, you should be sent to the second floor first, and then enter this place through the passage of the second floor. But just now, you came up directly from the first floor. This means that the divine site didn't send you to the second floor. Isn't that strange? Mu Tianyang said. Zhuge Mingyang raised his eyebrows. At first, he didn't understand what Mu Tianyang meant. But after hearing Mu Tianyang's explanation, he immediately understood. Dong Xingyang did seem to have come up from the first floor. About this matter, Dong Xingyang frowned and said, To be honest, I don't know what's going on either. Now I'm also wondering. This happened to you. How can you not know? Zhuge Mingyang raised his eyebrows, and the look in his eyes became extremely unfriendly. Dong Xingyang said angrily, Nonsense, do I look like I know? Zhuge Mingyang looked at Dong Xingyang's expression and did not seem to be lying. Mu Tianyang was also looking at Dong Xingyang. Suddenly, a murderous intent surged, and he pounced on Dong Xingyang, shouting, What's your relationship with Qin Feiyang? Qin Feiyang? Dong Xingyang was suspicious. Mu Tianyang said, Qin Feiyang has an extraordinary relationship with the current guardian. If not him, who else would help you? Zhuge Mingyang's eyes also surged with a strong murderous intent. Dong Xingyang glanced at the two, his eyes full of vigilance, and said, I really don't know what you are talking about. Boom! Zhuge Mingyang's power erupted, and he pounced on Dong Xingyang. This aura, you've actually broken through to the war god level. Dong Xingyang's face turned pale with fright. It's good that you know. I'll give you one last chance. Tell me, have you already joined Qin Feiyang? Zhuge Mingyang shouted. Dong Xingyang said in a low voice, I, Dong Xingyang, am upright and righteous. If I say no, I mean no. Zhuge Mingyang said. How can I believe a one-sided story? Why are you talking so much nonsense? I'd rather kill 1,000 by mistake than let one go. Mu Tianyang said murderously. No. If he's really related to Qin Feiyang, then he still has value. Zhuge Mingyang smiled coldly. He pointed his index finger in the air, and a burst of divine power surged out, instantly entering Dong Jingyang's energy reserve. Pooh! Dong Jingyang's energy reserve was destroyed on the spot, and blood poured out of his mouth. He glared at the two and shouted, "Qin Feiyang killed my family. I want to drink his blood and eat his flesh. How can I have anything to do with him?" Zhuge Mingyang sneered, "That's even better. Follow me, work for me, and I'll avenge you." "Why would a hot-blooded man work for you?" Dong Jingyang snorted coldly. "That's not up to you." Zhuge Mingyang's hands formed a seal, and a blood-red mark appeared, and entered Dong Jingyang's head like lightning. Blood soul technique. Mu Tianyang looked at this scene and frowned, but he didn't do anything to stop it. However, just as the blood soul technique was about to take control of Dong Jingyang, a shocking murderous aura emerged from Dong Jingyang's mind with a boom. The blood-red mark was instantly destroyed. Then, that murderous aura rushed out from Dong Jingyang's forehead and rushed towards Zhuge Mingyang. "What's that?" Zhuge Mingyang's expression changed. Mu Tianyang was also very surprised. Boom! That murderous aura arrived in an instant, tearing the flesh on Zhuge Mingyang's lower abdomen, and was about to enter Zhuge Mingyang's energy reserve. In the nick of time, Zhuge Mingyang came back to his senses, raised his arm like lightning, and slapped at the murderous aura. Boom! The murderous aura shattered. But Zhuge Mingyang's arm also shattered, and blood and flesh flew everywhere. This, Mu Tianyang, was petrified on the spot. A wisp of murderous aura could actually seriously injure Zhuge Mingyang? How terrifying was the owner of this murderous aura? Zhuge Mingyang himself also looked at his shattered arm, dumbfounded. Swish! All of a sudden, he raised his head and stared at Dong Jingyang and said coldly, "Who on earth is helping you?" "Hee hee," Dong Jingyang laughed, slowly swallowed a spirit sea pill, and looked at Zhuge Mingyang indifferently and said, "You have the demon ancestor behind you, and I also have a big shot behind me, even stronger than the demon ancestor, so you'd better not do anything." "What? Stronger than master?" Zhuge Mingyang was shocked. Mu Tianyang was also dumbfounded. Why didn't he know that there was someone more terrifying than the demon ancestor in this world? Could it be, Mu Tianyang said, "The person behind you can't be Qin Yuan, right?" "Qin Yuan? You're talking about Qin Feiyang's uncle, aren't you?" "Unfortunately, it's not him." Dong Jingyang laughed. Genius remembered this site's address in a second. Mobile version of reading website. M. Chapter 1770. "It's not Qin Yuan either," Mu Tianyang frowned. "I don't care who the person behind you is, as long as it's someone who dares to hurt me, Zhuge Mingyang. I won't let a single one of them go." Demonic hand. Zhuge Mingyang's ferocious nature erupted as his divine power surged out and transformed into a giant palm. Like a huge mountain, he charged towards Dong Jingyang. Mu Tianyang's eyes flashed as he silently retreated to the side. Dong Jingyang raised his head and looked at the demonic hand. Looking at Zhuge Mingyang, a cold light flashed in his eyes as he said, "Do you really want to make a move?" "Nonsense," Zhuge Mingyang shouted. "All right." Dong Jingyang nodded. Immediately, a monstrous killing intent suddenly erupted from between his eyebrows. This time, it was no longer a wisp of killing intent, but a vast expanse. That killing intent was like a wave of blood as it roared out from between his eyebrows and blasted towards the demonic hand, accompanied by a deafening loud sound. The demonic hand immediately disintegrated. Zhuge Mingyang retreated continuously, blood flowing out of his mouth. His face was filled with shock. He had actually defeated his deity, art, so effortlessly. Dong Jingyang said, "You are not my match. Call your master's demon ancestor out." "Arrogant. Why would my master need to personally deal with an ant like you?" Zhuge Mingyang was seething with anger. In the past, he knew that there was a person called Dong Jingyang, but he had never taken him seriously, because no matter how one looked at it, Dong Jingyang was just an insignificant character. But he never thought that the result would be a wolf in sheep's clothing. Strange. Even the demon ancestor knows so much about it. Who exactly is the owner of this killing intent? Mu Tianyang sized up Dong Jingyang, his heart full of suspicion. With Dong Jingyang's ability, it was definitely impossible for him to know about the existence of the demon ancestor. The only explanation was the mysterious figure hiding behind Dong Jingyang. The atmosphere at the scene became more and more tense. This small space was filled with surging killing intent at this moment. "You piece of trash, can you hurry up?" But at this moment, suddenly, an angry roar came from the stone door on the first floor. "Bastard, you're the trash." "No, you're not even trash." Following closely, another different curse was heard. Mu Tianyang, Zhuge Mingyang, and Dong Jingyang were stunned and turned to look at the stone door. Whoosh! Immediately, two figures flew out from the stone door and appeared in their line of sight. It was a young man and a huge, ferocious beast. The young man was tall and slender, and he had a hooked nose. His eyes were like those of an eagle, and they shone with a sharp light. As for the ferocious beast, its fur was dark red, and it looked like a large dog. It had 7 heads on its shoulders, and it emitted a ferocious aura. Furthermore, the man and the beast both exuded an extremely powerful aura, indicating that they were false divinities. Tan Wu! Hellhound? Dong Jingyang was stunned. That's right. They were Tan Wu and the Hellhound. When the man and beast entered the void zone, they felt that the atmosphere was not right and immediately became vigilant. Hearing Dong Jingyang's voice, Tan Wu was also slightly stunned and said in surprise, "Dong Jingyang!" He then looked at Zhuge Mingyang and Mu Tianyang. When he saw Zhuge Mingyang covered in injuries, he immediately realized that something was wrong. Although Zhuge Mingyang was injured, his aura made him feel despair. He quickly poked the Hellhound's head and looked at Dong Jingyang and the other two with a smile. "Sorry, we went to the wrong place. You guys continue." Yes, we'll leave right away. Don't worry about us. Just pretend that we've never been here." The Hellhound also nodded and smiled. One man and one beast immediately turned around and prepared to enter the stone door. Wait. Tan Wu's expression suddenly froze. He grabbed the Hellhound and said in a low voice, "I heard that after breaking through to the false god realm, you can no longer go to the first floor. Otherwise, you will be killed by the rule force." "There's such a thing." The Hellhound nodded. "Then what should we do?" Tan Wu asked. The Hellhound said angrily, "Are you an idiot? If we can't go to the first floor, then, of course, we can only go to the second floor now." Yes. Look at my head. I'm so scared that I'm confused." Tan Wu slapped his forehead, turned his head to look at the stone door, and said in a daze, "Why are there so many doors?" Tan Wu looked at Dong Jingyang and the other two and said, "Do any of you know which door leads to the second floor?" Mu Tianyang looked at the man and beast in a daze and instinctively replied, "The stone door on the right." "Thank you," the man and the beast said gratefully, then ran towards the stone door on the right. Why should I tell them? Just as Tan Wu and the Hellhound were about to enter the stone door, Mu Tianyang was stunned and hurriedly said, Wait. What's the matter?" Tan Wu asked. Trash, I said you're stupid, and you still don't admit it? Why did you answer him? Hurry up and run." The Hellhound said angrily, "That's right. Why did I answer him?" Tan Wu was stunned for a moment, then immediately entered the stone door with the Hellhound. Boom! However, right at this moment, Mu Tianyang took a step forward and landed in front of the stone door. He grabbed Tan Wu and the Hellhound and forcefully pulled them out. Then Mu Tianyang threw Tan Wu and the Hellhound to the other side of the void and directly blocked the stone door of the second floor. "It's over. Tan Wu stabilized his body and looked at Mu Tianyang as he muttered. The hellhound said angrily, "Isn't it all because of you?" If you didn't answer him, would he have been able to stop us? Tan Wu said aggrievedly, "Isn't this instinct?" Instinct, your sister. I knew that you were stupid and unreliable. I was really blind to actually walk with you. The hellhound snorted coldly. Tan Wu's face darkened as he roared, "Let me tell you, damn dog, if you speak rudely again, don't blame me for being impolite to you." "Who are you calling a damn dog? Try calling me that again," the hellhound shouted. Mu Tianyang and the other two looked at each other in dismay. Was this man and beast's brain short-circuited? They didn't know the current situation and still had the mood to quarrel there? Mu Tianyang said angrily, "Both of you shut up!" Tan Wu and the hellhound's bodies trembled as they hurriedly looked at Mu Tianyang, their faces full of fawning smiles. "My head is all dizzy because of you guys." Mu Tianyang glared fiercely at Tan Wu and the hellhound. Yes, it's our fault." The hellhound nodded and asked humbly, "May I ask which great immortal you are?" "Which great immortal?" Mu Tianyang's veins bulged as he shouted. "Don't pester me endlessly. I am Mu Tianyang. You guys actually don't know? Aren't you a little too ignorant? So you are the imperial emperor of the previous dynasty. Excuse me. But I heard that you have already been destroyed by the Qin emperor? Why did you appear in the miracle site now?" The hellhound looked at Mu Tianyang suspiciously. "Damn dog, although he's the ruler of a fallen country, he is still an imperial emperor. How can you be so rude?" Tan Wu frowned and scolded, looking at Mu Tianyang, and said with a smile, "I'm sorry this junior didn't discipline him well. I hope Imperial Emperor will forgive me." Ruler of a fallen country? Mu Tianyang was instantly enraged. Although Tan Wu was polite, it undoubtedly made him even angrier. "Don't pretend to be crazy with us here. Speak. Why are you guys the same as Dong Jingyang, not sent to the second floor of the miracle site by the power of rules?" Mu Tianyang shouted. "How would we know this? Maybe it's because our character is good." The hellhound said. When Mu Tianyang heard this, the anger in his heart suddenly rose and he roared, "What does this have to do with character? How can it have nothing to do with it? No matter where, no matter who, they will definitely take care of people with good character," the hellhound said aggrievedly. "Bastard!" Mu Tianyang couldn't hold it in any longer. Two strands of divine sense broke through the air and rushed towards Tan Wu and the hellhound's forehead. "You're being unreasonable." "We haven't offended you. Why are you attacking us?" the hellhound said angrily. "That's right." Tan Wu nodded. While they were talking, one man and one beast displayed a mysterious footwork, narrowly avoiding the bombardment of divine sense. "And you can actually dodge it." Mu Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Luck. Don't make things difficult for us. After all, you're also an imperial emperor. What is the meaning of making things difficult for us two juniors? Moreover, my mouth is not tight and I can't control the wind. If I accidentally say it out, then wouldn't you be laughed at? Aren't you dealing with Dong Jingyang? Just pretend that we don't exist, okay? The hellhound smiled embarrassedly and looked at Mu Tianyang pleadingly. "My mouth is not tight?" Mu Tianyang was so angry that he laughed. He actually dared to threaten him? "That's enough, damn dog, stop talking." Tan Wu glared at the hellhound, glanced at the three of them, and said indifferently, "Mu Tianyang, Zhuge and Dong Jingyang, no matter what grudges you have, don't involve us. Of course, we won't interfere in your affairs." Dong Jingyang smiled and said, "I don't care, but these two people, I'm afraid they won't do as you wish." Tan Wu shook his head helplessly and sighed. "Then this makes things difficult for me." And Mu Tianyang and Zhuge looked at Tan Wu with a fearless look. Could it be that this person also had something to rely on? Mu Tianyang said. This monarch only wants to know the reason why you guys weren't sent to the second level by the power of rules. I don't know. Actually, I'm also wondering. Tan Wu shook his head. Dong Zhengyang doesn't know. Tan Wu doesn't know either. What exactly is going on? Mu Tianyang muttered. Zhuge Mingyang grinned sinisterly and said, No matter what the reason is, kill them all. Tan Wu smiled and said, I advise you it's best not to make a move. Are you threatening me? Zhuge Mingyang suddenly looked at Tan Wu, his killing intent not concealed. Tan Wu crossed his arms and said with a confident smile, If you really think so, you can also take it that I'm threatening you. Sigh. Since this trash has already said so, then this monarch will also be a little more unyielding, lest I embarrass him. The Hell Divine Hound sighed softly and stood up like a human. The cheeky smile from before was gone, and its entire body was filled with a murderous aura. Dong Zhengyang glanced at Tan Wu and the Hell Divine Hound, then looked at Zhuge Mingyang and said with a chuckle, It's really getting more and more interesting. He was also very curious. What reliance did it have to make Tan Wu so confident? Could it be that there was also a big shot hiding behind this Tan Wu? Genius 1 second, remember this website address. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1771. Zhuge Mingyang stared at Tan Wu and the Hell God Hound, his eyes flickering. Time passed breath by breath. Everyone was silent, and the atmosphere was incomparably oppressive. A moment passed. The Hell God Hound couldn't bear the atmosphere any longer, and secretly sent a sound transmission to Tan Wu. Trash, if you have any trump cards, just take them out. It's so tiring to be in a stalemate with them like this. Tan Wu secretly said, You've been with me all this time. If I really have any trump cards, how could you not know? What the hell? The Hell God Hound panicked and secretly said angrily, Don't tell me that you're just putting on an act. Then what do you think I'm doing? It's not like you don't know. Before we left, old Master Qin gave us a few divine pills. As for the rest, he told us to do as we see fit. Tan Wu said snappily. The Hell God Hound secretly said angrily, You bastard, I'm really going to die because of you. Don't talk nonsense. Straighten your back. If we don't scare them today, both of us will be finished. Tan Wu coldly snorted. Unreliable bastard. I'll settle the score with you later. The Hell God Hound secretly cursed, its back straightened, and its eyes became more and more arrogant, as if it really had something to rely on. Boom! Suddenly, Zhuge Mingyang took a step forward, his killing intent soaring to the heavens. Crap! Tan Wu's eyelids twitched. But then, Zhuge Mingyang raised his eyebrows, retracted his steps, and glanced at Mu Tianyang. What's going on? The Hell God Hound secretly said. Tan Wu sent a sound transmission. He should be worried about Mu Tianyang. If both of us suffer, it will naturally be Mu Tianyang who reaps the benefits. Looks like we really scared him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have considered so much. The Hell God Hound secretly laughed. We can't let our guard down yet. Tan Wu secretly said. Mu Tianyang raised his eyebrows and asked in confusion. Zhuge Mingyang, you're not even afraid of Qin Feiyang. Why are you afraid of them? You can't wait for me to make a move. Zhuge Mingyang sneered. How could this be? Mu Tianyang shook his head and smiled. I was just considering joining hands with you. Really? How about this? Let's split up. I'll deal with Dong Zhengyang, and you deal with Tan Wu and the Hell God Dog. Zhuge Mingyang said. Aren't you making things difficult for me? Right now, I'm only a divine sense body. Not to mention that Tan Wu and the Hell God Hound have hidden trump cards. Even if they didn't, I'm still not their match. Mu Tianyang said. Keep pretending, keep pretending. Who doesn't know that you have a heaven-defying divine artifact? Zhuge Mingyang sneered. Mu Tianyang said. Then what if Tan Wu is also hiding a heaven-defying divine artifact? When Zhuge Mingyang heard this, he was immediately annoyed and said angrily, "Do you think that a heaven-defying divine artifact is a radish or a cabbage that can be found everywhere on the street?" This time, he didn't dare to make a move. Even such a far-fetched excuse, Mu Tianyang could find it. He definitely had ulterior motives. Mu Tianyang said helplessly, "Saying so much, isn't it because you don't believe me? Aren't you the same?" Zhuge Mingyang snorted coldly and decisively stopped. He took out a healing pill and threw it into his mouth. Then he walked to the side and quietly recuperated. "What a pity," Mu Tianyang muttered secretly. Seeing this, the Hell God Dog secretly heaved a sigh of relief and sent a sound transmission. Fortunately, these two people have ulterior motives. Otherwise, we would really have to go see the King of Hell this time. "Yeah," Tan Wu replied, glancing at Mu Tianyang and Zhuge Mingyang. There was a sneer in the depths of his eyes. Originally, these two people, any one of them could easily kill him and the Hell God Dog. But because of the distrust between the two sides, they missed a good opportunity. However, this was also within his expectations. The grudge between the two sides had basically reached the point of no return. Even if they had reached a true alliance, they would not believe each other at all. Even if there was a chance, they would not hesitate at all and directly give the other party a fatal blow from behind. In other words, Zhuge Mingyang's approach was a very wise choice. Actually, Tan Wu and the Hell God Dog didn't know that even if Mu Tianyang and Zhuge Mingyang really attacked them, they would be fine. Because in the dark, there was a person watching them. This person was Qin Feiyang. It's a pity that they didn't fight. In the void next to Tan Wu, Qin Feiyang stood above the Black Tortoise Realm's medicine field, looking at Zhuge Mingyang and Mu Tianyang in the image, his face full of regret. Tang Hai, Zhao Tailai, and Chui Li stood side by side behind Qin Feiyang. Chui Li's aura had already reached the level of a war god. That's right. After half a year of seclusion, whether it was Chui Li or Qin Feiyang, they had already stepped into the war god realm. After all, half a year outside was close to 5 years inside the ancient castle. Think about it, with Qin Feiyang here, how could anything happen to Tan Wu? Moreover, not only Qin Feiyang and Chui Li, but the Lady of the Dragon Phoenix House, Ling Yunfei, Luo Qingzhu, Gong Sunbei, Lu Zhang, the Golden Wolf King, and the Scorpion King had also stepped into the false god realm in this half a year. The White-Eyed Wolf had also broken through to the peak of the 9-star combat emperor realm, and was now in Ling Yunfei's spatial divine item, comprehending the profound meaning of becoming a true god. Fatso, Lu Hong, Viper, Winged Snow Eagle, and the other beasts had also improved their cultivation by a lot, ranging from 9-star combat emperor to 8-star combat emperor. The Spirit Queen, Wang Zicheng, and Barbarian Bull had also improved by leaps and bounds since entering the ancient castle. In short, their small team now had a total of 5 war gods, namely Qin Feiyang, Zhao Tailai, Tang Hai, Chui Li, and the Golden Leopard. Of course, the 6 elders, Willow Tree, Li Jian, Yu Huang, and the other false gods were also working hard, crazily trying to break through to the war god realm. As for Qin Feiyang, when did he enter the vacuum zone? In fact, he had arrived a few days earlier than Dong Jingyang and Tan Wu. After breaking through to the war god realm, he drove the Black Tortoise realm and rushed here. He had been hiding in the Black Tortoise realm and did not appear, because he wanted to see if he could find an opportunity to get rid of 1 or 2. For example, the State Preceptor and Mu Changfeng. Unfortunately, after waiting for a few days, these people did not appear. However, the appearance of Dong Jingyang and Tan Wu was somewhat out of his expectations. What surprised him even more was that Dong Jingyang actually hid so deeply. He had suspected more than once that Dong Jingyang might also be someone that Uncle Yuan helped him cultivate, but after observing, it did not feel like it. And after this incident, he could finally confirm that Dong Xingyang and Uncle Yuan had nothing to do with each other, because that killing intent did not belong to Uncle Yuan. As for Tan Wu and the Hell God Hound, the breakthrough of these two fellows also surprised him. He remembered that the last time they met, Tan Wu and the Hell God Hound had just taken the divine pill and stepped into the peak of the 9-star War God realm. And how long had it been? Both of them had actually broken through to the false God realm. This speed was even more terrifying than Ling Yunfei and the others. Could it also be related to the divine pill? But if there was really a divine pill that could speed up a person's comprehension of the profound meaning of becoming a god and break through to the false god realm, then why didn't Ling Yunfei and the others? One had to know. Whether it was Tan Wu or Ling Yunfei and the others, they were all nurtured by Uncle Yuan. As for Uncle Yuan's character, he naturally knew it best, and would definitely not favor one and discriminate against the other. Zhao Tailai glanced at Zhuge Mingyang and Mu Tianyang and frowned. Young master, we can't just wait here for a few days and not do anything, right? What do you mean? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Since Mu Changfeng and the imperial tutor are not coming out, then we'll make a move on Mu Tianyang and Zhuge Mingyang. Zhao Tailai said. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, these two people both have spatial divine objects, and they are also very cautious people. If we want to attack them, the success rate is too low. Zhao Tailai could not help but frown. Tang Hai said, now that you have also stepped into the war god realm, we might as well kill them here. Good idea. Zhao Tailai's eyes lit up and said, if we go out to fight, we will definitely not be able to avoid the destruction of lives. But here, no matter how we fight, we will not implicate an innocent life. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. It's not that I haven't thought about this. But do you think that they will fight us head-on now? Definitely not. After all, they don't have the confidence. Cui Li said, that's right. If we have to fight, Zhuge Mingyang and Mu Tianyang can definitely enter the spatial divine object to avoid the battle. Qin Feiyang said. Zhao Tailai said angrily, this won't do, that won't do. Could it be that we have to wait until we leave the divine site to fight? Only after leaving the divine site can we break them one by one. Because at that time, Zhuge Mingyang, the imperial tutor, and Emperor Hong will return to the great Qin Empire, or go to the Sea of Reincarnation to find the demon ancestor. As for Mu Tianyang and the Mu family, if nothing unexpected happens, they will probably enter the Forgotten Continent's internal sea. Because the internal sea is unable to open the portal, it is convenient for them to hide. In other words, our battle with them is very likely to take place in the Sea of Reincarnation and the Endless Ocean, so we won't implicate too many innocent people. Qin Feiyang said, if that's the case, then we don't have to be too insistent on fighting with them now. Zhao Tailai said with a smile, old Zhao, you have really changed. I remember that back in the Black Tortoise world, you didn't care about the lives of others. Qin Feiyang said, young master, aren't you the one who influenced me? Zhao Tailai said with a smile, rubbing his head. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed, and the topic suddenly changed. However, we can also try to attack Mu Tianyang and Zhuge Mingyang now. With a thought, the mysterious lady and Yi Shu immediately appeared from the ancient castle. Qin Feiyang was about to speak, but the mysterious lady waved her hand. Yi Shu, and I heard it. You don't have to explain any more. After saying that, the mysterious lady waved her hand, and the hook-nosed old man and the monkey-faced old man both appeared. Qin Feiyang glanced at everyone and said, it would be best if we succeed in attacking the two of them, but if we don't, we won't force it. However, Cui Li and I have to stay put for now. Why? Zhao Tailai was puzzled. They still don't know that Cui Li and I have become martial gods. If we all go out and the attack fails, won't Cui Li and my strength be exposed? I still want to give them a surprise. Taking a step back, if even you war gods failed, then there's not much point in having Cui Li and I on our side. Qin Feiyang said, That's true. Everyone nodded. Chui Li said with a smile, I'm afraid their little hearts won't be able to bear this surprise. Yeah. How long has it been since you broke through to the martial god realm? Such a ridiculous speed will probably make them collapse. The divine leopard said jokingly. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Get ready. The 6 people and the golden leopard looked at each other, and their auras erupted as they began to accumulate power. Chapter 1772. Chui Li glanced at Tang Hai's group and the golden leopard before looking at Qin Feiyang. Young master, I have a question that I've been wanting to ask you ever since you came out of seclusion. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback as he asked suspiciously, What is it? Chui Li looked at Zhuge Mingyang on the screen and asked, If Zhuge Mingyang didn't avoid the battle and fought with you head-on, do you have the confidence to defeat him now? Confidence, Qin Feiyang murmured as his face was brimming with confidence. He smiled and said, 100%. Chui Li also smiled. Mu Tianyang and Zhuge Mingyang didn't know that their young master had already stepped into the war god realm. They also didn't know that their young master's battle soul and the 6-word divine formula had undergone earth-shattering changes. This was really exciting. When Mu Tianyang and the others saw their young master's current strength and changes, how interesting would their expressions be? Rumble. The auras of the mysterious lady and the golden leopard were getting stronger and stronger. Heaven and earth trembled. Below, the 9 beast emperors guarding the herb field were all terrified. With so many war gods, what if they suddenly attacked them? Just thinking about it made their hair stand on end. At the same time, there was a trace of envy in their eyes towards the golden leopard. Thinking back to the past, the golden leopard was the same as them. They were both beast emperors of the demonic land and weren't much stronger than them. However, after following Qin Feiyang, it stepped into the war god realm not long after. The difference between a war god and a false god was like heaven and earth. There was no comparison at all. Why didn't Zhao Tailai take a fancy to us back then? One of the beast emperors sighed. If Zhao Tailai had taken a fancy to them when he was looking for a mount, then the one standing with Qin Feiyang and the others wouldn't have been the golden leopard. This was fate. The golden leopard could only blame its good luck. It was destined to soar. Just as the 9 beast emperors were sighing, the auras of the mysterious woman and the golden leopard were about to reach their peak. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. He controlled the black tortoise realm and silently flew towards Mu Tianyang and Zhuge Mingyang. Outside, Zhuge Mingyang quietly repaired his arm. However, his gaze was always on Mu Tianyang, Dong Jingyang, the Cerberus, and Tan Wu. Mu Tianyang also stood to the side, silent. No one knew what he was thinking at this moment. Tan Wu and the Hell God Hound retreated far away without batting an eyelid, maintaining a distance from Mu Tianyang and the other 2. As for Dong Zhengyang, he was also silently repairing his energy reserve. That terrifying killing intent had also returned to his glabella. Anyway, at this moment, no one spoke. The entire vacuum zone fell into a deathly silence. Boom! But suddenly, several streaks of divine might emerged, breaking the silence, and Tan Wu, the Hell God Hound, and Dong Jingyang were shocked. They hurriedly looked up and saw a few figures appear out of thin air above Zhuge Mingyang and Mu Tianyang. It's them. Mysterious Madam, Elder Qin. The 2 men and 1 beast were shocked. What shocked them even more was that these people had actually broken through to the war god realm. However, Mu Tianyang and Zhuge Mingyang did not panic at the sudden appearance of the mysterious madam and the others, as well as the golden leopard. It was as if they had already expected it. Swish! The next moment, the 2 of them instantly disappeared without a trace. Damn it! The mysterious madam was extremely angry. Although she had already mentally prepared herself in advance that the attack might not succeed, she still couldn't help but be annoyed at this moment. Zhao Tailai's divine sense emerged, locking onto the two spatial divine objects, and said in a deep voice, "Tang Hai, quickly revive the divine artifact and see if you can force them out." After saying that, Zhao Tailai was the first to take out the rusty axe, rushed to Mu Tianyang's spatial divine object, and immediately hacked at it. Although this axe could not be revived, its sharpness was enough to tear the heavens and split the earth. At the same time, Tang Hai also took out his dagger, his divine power surging into it, bringing along a world-destroying divine might. He slashed towards Zhuge Mingyang's spatial divine object. "You guys really don't give up." Suddenly, Mu Tianyang appeared in the air. Along with him were Mu Changyun and Mu Changfeng, as well as the Bloodblade. The divine power of the two, as well as Mu Tianyang's divine sense, poured into the Bloodblade, and the power of the heaven-defying divine artifact erupted. Zhao Tailai's expression changed, and he retreated without hesitation. Clang! At the same time, Tang Hai's blade slashed onto Zhuge Mingyang's spatial divine object, and a dazzling light immediately shot out from the void. However, the spatial divine object did not shatter, but Tang Hai's arm was numb from the shock. Boom! In the next moment, Zhuge Mingyang appeared, and the bone dragon battle soul roared in the sky, its innate ability covering all directions. Tang Hai's cultivation immediately began to plummet. If it's as young master expected, it's harder than ascending to the heavens to attack them. Tang Hai murmured and retreated like lightning. Fortunately, Zhuge Mingyang's innate ability did not have the ability to bind, otherwise he would have suffered again. Zhuge Mingyang glanced at Tang Hai, then looked at Zhao Tailai and the others, as well as the golden divine leopard, and then looked at the void and sneered, "Qin Feiyang, you're too naive to think of sneak attacking us." "It's not naive, it's stupid. Everyone knows about the Black Tortoise Realm. How could we not be prepared?" Mu Tianyang snorted coldly. "Qin Feiyang is also here." Dong Zhenyang, Tan Wu, and the Hell God Hound immediately released their divine sense to search for Qin Feiyang's whereabouts. But under their divine sense, they found nothing. What was going on? Even their divine sense could not find him? Zhuge Mingyang said, "Come out, what's the point of hiding?" Swoosh! Before he finished speaking, Qin Feiyang appeared beside the mysterious lady and the others, but he did not come out with them. His cultivation was also suppressed to the false god realm. "He's really here?" Dong Xingyang was surprised. But why couldn't their divine sense find him? One should know that divine sense was everywhere. Even if Qin Feiyang was hiding in the ancient castle, he could not escape the divine sense's search. Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Tianyang and Tan Wu and said, "I'm not a demon. Do you have to be so wary of me?" "Of course we have to be wary of you. Just like this time, if we weren't prepared, we would have been dead by now," Mu Tianyang said. Qin Feiyang shook his head, helplessly. "Cut the crap," Zhuge Mingyang coldly shouted, staring at Qin Feiyang, and said, "Do you still remember what you used to say the most?" "What?" Qin Feiyang was curious. "If you do something wrong, you have to pay the price. Now that you've ambushed us, don't you have to pay the price?" Zhuge Mingyang laughed. "Is that so? It seems that after becoming a war god, your strength should have improved a lot. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so arrogant." Qin Feiyang said. Zhuge Mingyang said, "I don't know how much I've improved, but it's more than enough to kill a false god like you." "More than enough," Qin Feiyang muttered. Suddenly, he took a step forward and entered the domain formed by Zhuge Mingyang's innate ability. "What?" Zhuge Mingyang was petrified on the spot. Mu Tianyang and the Mu brothers were also shocked. They had thought of 10,000 possibilities, but they never thought that Qin Feiyang would take the initiative to step into the domain. As soon as he entered the domain, Qin Feiyang's cultivation rapidly plummeted. 9-star War God peak. 9-star War God. 8-star War God. 7-star War God. However, although his cultivation had fallen to 7-star War God, Qin Feiyang's expression did not change as he looked at Zhuge Mingyang calmly. What's going on? Why is he so calm? Zhuge Mingyang muttered. Mu Tianyang also looked at Qin Feiyang in disbelief. The two of them looked at Zhao Tailai and the others. They realized, whether it was Zhao Tailai, Tang Hai, or the mysterious madam and the others, there was no trace of worry on their faces. Moreover, they had no intention of saving Qin Feiyang and stood there motionlessly. What's going on? These people are too calm, the two of them murmured. Could it be the two of them had the same thought in their minds at the same time? Could it be that Qin Feiyang had obtained some heaven-defying fortune or divine artifact on the second level of the divine ruins in the past 6 months? If it were someone else, they would have more or less suspected that they were pretending to be calm. But facing Qin Feiyang, they really did not have the guts to guess and guess, because there were too many possibilities on Qin Feiyang. Although they had thought of many possibilities, they had never thought that Qin Feiyang had already stepped into the War God realm, because, in their opinion, this was simply impossible. Mu Tianyang's eyes flashed, and he transmitted his voice. Zhuge Mingyang, it's too risky to fight with him now. Let's talk about it after we leave the divine ruins. You were really scared by him? Zhuge Mingyang snorted coldly. If you weren't scared by him, why didn't you make a move? Before you talk about me, you should consider yourself carefully. Mu Tianyang sneered inwardly and decisively put away his blood blade and sent Mu Changfeng and Mu Tianyang into the spatial divine item. Emperor of the previous dynasty? What a joke! Zhuge Mingyang smiled disdainfully and also recalled the Bone Dragon War Soul. After his innate ability disappeared, Qin Feiyang's cultivation returned to the false divinity realm. Sai, I've already taken the initiative to enter the domain, but you don't dare to make a move. How boring. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. He turned and walked toward Zhao Tailai and the others. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, Zhuge Mingyang was full of hostility. He stared at Qin Feiyang's back and muttered, "Continue to be arrogant. Sooner or later, I'll take your dog life." Amazing! Tan Wu sighed. He scared Mu Tianyang and Zhuge Mingyang just by standing there. I don't know about the others, but they're definitely stronger than you. The Hell Divine Hound transmitted his voice, his eyes full of contempt. Tan Wu's face darkened and said angrily, "If he's so powerful, why didn't you follow him back then?" Sai, isn't it because my eyes were covered by eye feces back then? Otherwise, why would I choose a trash like you? The Hell Divine Hound lamented. Your sister, am I that bad? Tan Wu said angrily. I'm not afraid of hurting you. You're worse than what I said. The Hell Divine Hound shook his head. Tan Wu's veins jumped and his face twitched uncontrollably. As expected, you're still the same as before. Your courage and boldness make people feel ashamed of their inferiority. I really don't want to be enemies with you. But there are some things that I can't decide. Dong Jingyang looked at Qin Feiyang's back and couldn't help but admire him. But at the same time, there was a trace of helplessness and disappointment on his face. Chapter 1773. However, Qin Feiyang did not notice Dong Jingyang's abnormality. He walked to the side of Zhao Tailai and the others, turned his head to look at the stone door leading to the outside, and gradually frowned. Since you don't plan to make a move, then open the passage, Mu Tianyang said. With a wave of his hand, 6 clusters of Dan fire appeared. Heat waves surged, and the vacuum area immediately became like a large furnace. Zhuge Mingyang also took out a Dan fire. This was the sky profound flame that Qin Feiyang had given to Emperor Hong back then. Now, Emperor Hong was hiding in the spatial divine object to cultivate in seclusion, so he naturally handed it over to Zhuge Mingyang. The mysterious lady also took out a cluster of danfire. It was the heavenly dipper flame that Mu Tianyang had given to the chief pagoda master. As a result, there were 8 clusters of danfire, and only Qin Feiyang's heavenly thunder flame and frost flame were left. But Qin Feiyang did not take it out for a long time. "Feiyang, what's wrong?" The mysterious lady looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang shook his head. "We can't leave yet, because there's still one more person who hasn't arrived." "Who?" Everyone was suspicious. "Fire Unicorn," Qin Feiyang said. When he first met the Fire Unicorn on the first floor, he originally wanted the Fire Unicorn to go with him. Moreover, it was a very sincere invitation. But in the end, the Fire Unicorn still rejected him on the grounds that something was summoning it. And even now, he still didn't know where the Fire Unicorn was. Possible. This was not an excuse. Indeed, something was summoning the Fire Unicorn. But even so, Qin Feiyang was still very disappointed, because every time he saw the Fire Unicorn, an indescribable emotion would rise in his heart. Fire Unicorn! The mysterious lady, Yi Shu and Elder Qin looked at each other. If not for Qin Feiyang's reminder, they would have forgotten about the Fire Unicorn. Fire Unicorn! At the same time, Tan Wu and the Hell God Hound looked at each other with a trace of hesitation in their eyes. The Hell God Hound sent a sound transmission. "Trash, should we tell him?" This, Tan Wu hesitated and did not speak. Back then, the Fire Qilin told us not to tell Qin Feiyang about its whereabouts, lest Qin Feiyang worry about it. But looking at Qin Feiyang's current state, he probably won't open the passage until the Fire Qilin appears. The infernal divine hound said, "Maybe in Qin Feiyang's heart, the Fire Qilin is really important." Tan Wu sighed deeply and walked to the front of the stone door in large strides. Standing beside Qin Feiyang, he pretended to look at the stone door and secretly transmitted his voice to Qin Feiyang. No need to wait for the Fire Qilin. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He shot a glance at Tan Wu and thought to himself, "Could it be that you've seen it before?" "Yes," Tan Wu said. "When did this happen?" Qin Feiyang hurriedly asked. Counting carefully, it seems to have been 3 months ago. At that time, the dead dog and I were chased by the beasts on the first floor and fled into a desolate valley. We happened to meet it. It was also it who saved us. At that time, it was cultivating in seclusion. It was also because of its help that the infernal divine hound and I could step into the pseudo-god realm so quickly. Tan Wu transmitted his voice. 3 months ago, Qin Feiyang frowned. This happened when he was refining the soul stone and trying to break through to the war god realm. Qin Feiyang asked curiously, "How did it help you?" "Inherited memories," Tan Wu said secretly. "Inherited memories?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "That's right. It obtained 3 inherited memories on the first floor. It asked for one for itself and gave the other 2 to me and the infernal divine hound. These 3 inherited memories all contain the complete mysteries of becoming a god," Tan Wu said secretly. His words were full of gratitude to the Fire Qilin. "I see." Qin Feiyang was suddenly enlightened. In this world, there shouldn't be any pills that could speed up one's comprehension of the mysteries of becoming a god. "Qin Feiyang, what do you mean? Could it be that you want us to accompany you here just to wait for the Fire Qilin?" "You have the mood, but we don't," Zhuge Mingyang said impatiently. Qin Feiyang ignored him and said secretly, "Then where is it now?" After stepping into the pseudo-god realm, it was sent to the 2nd floor by the rule force. But before it left, it told me not to tell you its whereabouts. It didn't want you to worry. Tan Wu said. "The 2nd floor," Qin Feiyang muttered. Tan Wu added, "And it also said that it won't leave the miracle." "If it doesn't leave the miracle, where does it want to go?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Tan Wu smiled bitterly and said, I also asked it, but it didn't say. It only said that we'll meet again if fate allows. Qin Feiyang frowned. Could it be that the fire Qilin had also entered the third floor like the divine beast in the endless sea? Speaking of which, there's something I've been wondering about. Tan Wu suddenly transmitted his voice again. What is it? Qin Feiyang said. At that time, the fire Qilin had just broken through to the pseudo-god realm and was sent to the second floor by the rule force. But after the Hell God Hound and I broke through, the rule force didn't appear? Moreover, the griffin beast guarding the passage not only didn't stop us, it was even polite to me and the Hell God Hound. Tan Wu said, It's because of me. Qin Feiyang laughed secretly. You? Tan Wu was stunned. Yes. Actually, I've seen you and the Hell God Hound a long time ago. Qin Feiyang said. When? Tan Wu asked. Qin Feiyang said it was when you took the divine pill and broke through to the peak of the 9-star combat emperor realm. Tan Wu was puzzled. Then why didn't you show up? Qin Feiyang said, I know your personality. Even if I showed up, you wouldn't follow me, so I didn't disturb you. So that's how it is. You really know me well. Tan Wu secretly smiled and said, Then what's with the rule force? Could it be that you can already control the rule force of the miracle? How could I have this ability? It's the guardian of the miracle. I'm on good terms with it. When I entered the second floor, I begged it to secretly take care of you and the Hell God Hound, and Dong Zhengyang. As for the fire Qilin, I didn't think of it at that time, so the guardian didn't take special care of it. Thus, it was sent to the second floor. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. So that's how it is. No wonder as soon as the dead dog and I appeared here, Mu Tianyang and Zhuge Mingyang asked me what my relationship with you was. Tan Wu secretly laughed, then said, But this Dong Zhengyang, I can't see through him. I can't see through him either, Qin Feiyang said. You don't even know whether he's a friend or a foe, and you're still helping him? Tan Wu was a little speechless. Originally, he thought that Qin Feiyang knew Dong Zhengyang's background. Whether he's a friend or a foe in the future, I won't regret helping him, Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Then are we still waiting for the fire Qilin? Tan Wu asked. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and sighed. It has its own path to walk. I can't control it, nor do I have the qualifications to control it. Let's leave it to fate. After saying that, he took out the heavenly thunder flame and the ice flame. Seeing this, the mysterious lady asked suspiciously, Aren't we waiting? No. Qin Feiyang smiled. Although he did not know where the fire Qilin was going, and although the second level was very dangerous, he believed that with the fire Qilin's ability, it would definitely survive. In the future, they would definitely meet again. Mu Tianyang and Zhuge Mingyang had been waiting impatiently for a long time. Seeing Qin Feiyang take out the heavenly thunder flame and the ice flame, they immediately brought their respective elixir fires to the stone door. The stone door exuded an ancient aura, although it was not as grand as the stone door that appeared when they entered the divine site. There were also 10 palm-sized grooves on it. These grooves were used to inlay elixir fires. Qin Feiyang, the mysterious lady, Zhuge Mingyang, and Mu Tianyang looked at each other and raised their arms at the same time. 10 clusters of elixir fires rose into the air and merged into a groove. Buzz! The simple and unadorned stone door suddenly bloomed with colorful lights. A pitch-black passage gradually appeared. From a distance, it looked like a bottomless abyss, exuding a heart-palpitating aura. The mysterious lady said secretly, Feiyang, going out is the same as going in. There are space-time storms and all kinds of illusions. Remember not to retreat when you see illusions. Understood. Qin Feiyang nodded. The mysterious lady had said that if they ran away when they saw illusions, even with the protection of elixir fires, they would be obliterated by the space-time storms. Whoosh! As soon as the mysterious lady finished speaking, Mu Tianyang and Zhuge Mingyang withdrew their elixir fires and rushed into the stone door one after another, disappearing from the sight of Qin Feiyang and the others. The Cerberus was stunned. Are they in a hurry to be reincarnated? It's not an exaggeration to say that they are in a hurry to be reincarnated. Zhao Tailai sneered. The reason why they couldn't wait to leave was that they were afraid that Qin Feiyang would fight with them as soon as he went out. So, they had to leave the divine site before Qin Feiyang so that they could have time to escape. Tang Hai suddenly said, "Old Zhao, are you excited?" Zhao Tailai was stunned and turned to look at Tang Hai. He saw Tang Hai staring at the stone door with joy in his eyes. "We can finally leave the divine site. How can we not be excited?" Zhao Tailai murmured. "This emperor would like to see what kind of world it is outside." The golden leopard's eyes were also full of anticipation. "Then let's go." The mysterious lady laughed. "Qin Feiyang, wait." Suddenly, Dong Xingyang's voice sounded behind Qin Feiyang. "What's wrong?" Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and turned to look at Dong Xingyang suspiciously. Dong Xingyang said, "If you don't say something here, you won't have the chance to say it when you go out. Do you still remember what I said to you on the first floor?" "I remember. You told me to be careful of you." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Yes, and now I will remind you again. In the future, don't turn your back to me, because I can stab you in the back at any time." Dong Xingyang said. Hearing these words, the mysterious lady, Zhao Tailai, and the others raised their eyebrows. What did this person want to do? It didn't seem like he was hostile to Qin Feiyang. But if there was no hostility, then why did he suddenly say such words? However, Dong Zhenyang did not explain and fell silent. Qin Feiyang looked deeply at Dong Zhenyang and nodded. "I will remember." Then, he looked up at the stone door leading to the second floor and murmured, "Big cousin, Chang Shui, wait for me. I will definitely come back to save you." With that, the group of people stepped into the stone door one after another with the pill fire. Chapter 1774. On the third floor of the divine site, inside a large hall, the golden small beast stood in the middle of the hall, looking at the image in front of it. The image was showing the scene of Qin Feiyang and the others leaving the divine site. They finally left. After being busy for so long, I can finally go and rest. However, I'm really looking forward to the scene of this kid coming back to settle accounts with me. After Qin Feiyang and the others entered the passage and the stone door closed, the golden small beast smiled and waved its little paw. The image in the air disappeared. Following that, it took a step forward and left the palace, appearing in the sky above a vast mountain range. However, the mountain range within a radius of tens of thousands of miles was broken and ravines were everywhere. The air was filled with a tragic atmosphere as well as a monstrous rage. "Bastard, I'm going to kill you." A young man covered in blood roared out from a crack that was hundreds of feet wide and crazily charged into the sky. There was a divine dragon there. It was about 2 meters long and stood in the air with an arrogant look on its face. That's right, it was the ice dragon, and that young man was Qin Feiyang's cousin, Lu Jiajin. Boom! Lu Jiajin pounced forward. "Kid, with your strength, it's far from enough to kill me." The ice dragon god's face was full of contempt. With a light wave of its dragon claw, Lu Jiajin was sent flying and smashed into the ground again. All the bones in his body were about to fall apart. Blood dyed the sky red. "I want to go back, I want to go back." "You bastard, why did you leave me here?" Lu Jiajin was furious. "Didn't I say it before?" "I left you here because I took a fancy to you. You should feel honored that I took a fancy to you. If it were me, I would have knelt on the ground and respectfully called you master." The ice dragon said, "Don't even think about it. Even if I die, I won't acknowledge you as my master." However, if you're willing to be my mount, I can consider it. Lu Jiajin laughed. Mount. Ice Dragon was stunned. The golden small beast was also astonished. Did this brat even understand the situation? With that little bit of strength of his, he dared to spout such arrogant words? However, he had quite the character. The small beast smiled and looked at the ice dragon. Grandpa Frog is going back. What about you? You can go back. This emperor will stay here for the time being and teach this impudent brat a lesson. Ice Dragon grinned. Then don't kill him, the golden small beast said. Don't worry. He won't have the chance to die even if he wants to. Ice Dragon smirked. The small beast looked at Lu Jiajin and shook its head. What a pitiful child. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared without a trace. The ice dragon withdrew its gaze and lowered its head to look at Lu Jiajin. Brat, you've got guts. How dare you make me your mount? It's your honor to be my mount, Lu Jiajin said. Honor? Ha ha! Ice Dragon laughed and said, Boy, have you tasted hellish torture? This emperor will let you have a taste now. Boom! In an instant, Ice Dragon landed in front of Lu Jiajin and whipped Lu Jiajin's body with its tail. Lu Jiajin's skin was instantly lacerated and blood flowed out. However, he didn't even let out a groan. His expression was filled with an unruly smile. Forgotten continent, central divine kingdom, Pill Pagoda Square above the sky, a stone door that was 999 feet tall, completely black, emitting a mysterious and ancient aura. It was like a towering mountain that stood in the void, shaking the world. That's right. This was the door to the divine ruins. All these years, although the door to the divine ruins had been closed, it had not disappeared and had always existed. At first, whether it was the people of the central divine kingdom or the people of the imperial capital, they would all come and take a few curious glances. But as time passed, everyone slowly got used to it. Even if they passed by the door, they wouldn't care. In the sky was clear, the wind was gentle, and the sun was bright. People were still doing what they were supposed to do, as usual. The square of the Pill Pagoda was also the same as usual. The disciples of the Pill Pagoda came and went in a hurry. It looked very peaceful. Clang! Suddenly, another loud explosion sounded like thunder. Not only did it resound in the sky above the central divine kingdom, but it also spread through the space-time door into the sky above the imperial capital. Countless people's ears were ringing and their blood was boiling. In an instant, the people in the two places were in an uproar, and the people in the square of the Pill Pagoda had their eardrums torn and blood spurted out. What's going on? Everyone was shocked and looked in the direction of the sound. They found that the loud sound came from the door of the divine ruins. Why did the door of the divine ruins suddenly make a sound? Could it be the people who entered the divine ruins are coming out? Whoosh! Accompanied by the sound of something breaking through the air, figures continued to soar into the sky and looked at the door of the divine ruins. A large number of people also came from the imperial capital. There were marquis and their children. There were people from the treasure pavilion. There were elders from the divine palace. There were law enforcers from the outer hall and the inner hall. There were also a large number of disciples from the divine palace. There were naturally many people from the main pagoda. For example, the pagoda masters and peak masters, including Wang Yuer's parents, and the Mu family. Everyone surrounded the square of the Pill Pagoda and stared at the door of the divine ruins. It was rumored. Throughout history, there were only a handful of people who could come out of the divine ruins alive. They all wanted to know who came back alive. Get out of the way. Suddenly, a shout sounded. A purple-clothed young man rushed out of the crowd and stood not far from the door of the divine ruins. This person was young Master Hao. A few years had passed, and his cultivation was still at the war saint level. It could be said that, Compared with the growth of Qin Feiyang and the others over the years, it was not worth mentioning at all. But there was no other way. Without opening the door of potential, no matter how good one's talent was, it would take a few years, or even decades or centuries to break through a small realm. "Father, you will definitely come back alive," young Master Hao stared at the door of the divine ruins and muttered to himself. But gradually, a figure appeared in his mind. Immediately, his hands could not help but clench tightly and his eyes were full of hatred. The person that appeared in his mind was none other than Qin Feiyang. Clang! A loud noise sounded again. The door of the divine ruins finally opened slowly. A mighty aura roared out from the door. No one could withstand this aura. It was like the power of heaven. Everyone retreated in horror, but their eyes never left the door of the divine ruins, as if they were afraid of missing something. Whoosh! Suddenly, a golden figure rushed out from the door of the divine ruins like lightning. He was wearing a golden dragon robe and his aura was terrifying to the extreme. However, their faces were blurry. That's right, he was Mu Tianyang. Who is he? But the people present had never seen this emperor of the previous dynasty. Moreover, Mu Tianyang had no face now. So when they saw Mu Tianyang appear, their faces were full of surprise. It seems that in their memory, among the people who entered the divine ruins, there was no such person. As soon as Mu Tianyang appeared, he glanced at the crowd around him. Without saying a word, he shouted, "Where is the lord of the Mu clan?" Whoosh! A middle-aged man rushed out of the crowd and landed in front of Mu Tianyang. He asked suspiciously, "Who are you?" "This person is Mu Qing's father. Although I haven't condensed my facial features yet. But looking at my dress, you should know who I am, right?" Mu Tianyang said angrily. The lord of the Mu clan was stunned and looked at Mu Tianyang. His face suddenly changed, and he said in surprise, "Greetings." Mu Tianyang waved his hand to stop him and said, "Before I left, have you done what I told you?" "All the clansmen are ready. Treasures and so on have been packed." The lord of the Mu clan said respectfully, "Very good. Everyone in the Mu clan listen to my order. Return to the clan immediately." Mu Tianyang roared and immediately opened the portal and rushed in without looking back. The lord of the Mu clan also hurriedly followed. The other Mu clan members hidden in the crowd also opened the portal and left. It's too late to say. Zhuge Mingyang also rushed out of the divine ruins after Mu Tianyang. He is Zhuge Mingyang. How did his appearance change? Gray hair, gray pupils. Yi Futian muttered to himself, "If it weren't for his face, I wouldn't have recognized him." Zhuge Mingyang, the people present basically know him. Seeing him come out, everyone was talking about him. This Zhuge Mingyang is really lucky he can come out of the divine ruins alive. And looking at his aura, it's much stronger than before. The people in the imperial capital were particularly excited, because they still don't know Zhuge Mingyang's ambition. In their eyes, Zhuge Mingyang is a rare talent of the Great Qin and the next successor to the position of Zhuge Wuhou. After Zhuge Mingyang came out, he glanced at Mu Tianyang's back. Without any delay, he immediately rushed towards the space-time gate. Over the years, the portal has been connecting the imperial capital and the central divine kingdom. Zhuge Mingyang, where is the state preceptor and Emperor Hong? A group of marquis surrounded and asked, "They are all in my space divine object." Zhuge Mingyang said, "Great." Hearing this, not only the marquis, but all the people of the Great Qin couldn't help but cheer. However, Zhuge Mingyang's expression was extremely hazy, and he entered the portal without looking back. What's the situation? The person before, as soon as he appeared, he took the Mu clan away. Now this Zhuge Mingyang is the same. Why do I feel that the atmosphere is a bit strange? Someone muttered. "Father, come out quickly." Young Master Hao stared at the door of the divine ruins, his brows full of worry. Where are the others? Could it be that only that person from the Mu clan, Zhuge Mingyang, state preceptor, and Emperor Hong are alive. Everyone looked at the door of the temple, and seeing that no one appeared for a long time, they couldn't help but start to mutter in their hearts. The people of the main tower were especially nervous, because until now they hadn't seen anyone from the main tower come out. "Haven't you forgotten about someone?" Suddenly someone said. "Who?" Everyone was suspicious. "Qin Feiyang." That person said word by word. As soon as these 3 words came out, the entire Pale Pagoda Square instantly fell into a dead silence. Genius remembered the address of this site in a second. Top Point mobile version reading website. Chapter 1775. The name Qin Feiyang was like a taboo existence, causing people to tremble in fear. It's best if he doesn't come back. That's right. Once this fiend returns, the Forgotten Continent and the great Qin Empire will definitely be in chaos again. I really hope that he can die in the miracle and never appear again. People discussed in low voices. "Grandfather, they haven't come out yet. Are they really dead?" In the crowd, a tall woman in white with black hair like a waterfall looked at a white-haired old man next to her and asked, "Don't worry, everyone will die, but Qin Feiyang won't die." The white-haired old man smiled. These 2 people were Li He and Li Yan. Li He was already the deputy pavilion master of the trading pavilion and could be considered a big shot in the Forgotten Continent. As for Li Yan, as Li He's granddaughter and a disciple of the main tower, her status was naturally not comparable to ordinary people. Li Yan heard Li He's words and said unhappily, "Who cares about Qin Feiyang? I'm asking him." "Him." Li He was slightly stunned and said helplessly, "Yan, there are so many young talents in the world. Of all the young talents in the world, why do you have to like that damn fatso? How can you say that about him? Although he's a little fat, he has a good heart." Back then, when you were plotted against by Fu Enshan and the leader of the divine Python tribe, I was heartbroken and almost wanted to die. He was always with me and comforted me. Li Yan said unhappily, Yes. Grandfather was wrong. As long as my granddaughter likes him, as long as he treats my granddaughter well, I don't care if he's fat or ugly, I can put up with it." Li He hurriedly smiled apologetically. Put up with it? Li Yan was speechless. "Father, come out quickly. Young master Hao stared at the door of the miracle, his eyes full of anxiety. No one has come out after so long. It seems that only Zhuge Mingyang and the others are still alive. How terrifying! The main tower master, the mysterious madam, Wang Su, Gongsun Bei, Qin Feiyang. Which one of them isn't a terrifying figure? In the end, they were all buried in the miracle. What kind of place is this miracle? People sighed. The death of the chief tower master and the others is indeed regrettable. But Qin Feiyang, that unlucky star, his death is not to be regretted. Someone snorted. Really? Suddenly, a calm voice came from the door of the divine ruins. This voice, everyone's eyes trembled. The killing intent in young master Hao's eyes burst out. On the other hand, Li He and Li Yan's faces lit up with joy. That was because they were all too familiar with this voice. It was none other than the fiend everyone was talking about, Qin Feiyang. Before he finished speaking, Qin Feiyang's group flew out of the Divine Sight's gate and appeared in front of everyone. Not dead. Good people don't live long, but disasters live for 1,000 years. This saying is indeed true. Young master, how roared in his mind. It's them. When the pagoda masters and peak masters of the main pagoda saw the hook-nosed old man and the monkey-faced old man, they were ecstatic. A group of people immediately flew over. But in the next moment, they abruptly braked and stopped in the void. They stared at the mysterious lady, their faces full of disbelief. Wang Yuer's parents were the same. That face! Young Master Hao also noticed the mysterious lady, and his eyes suddenly widened. Young Master Hao, Wang Yuer's parents, as well as the Peak Masters and Pagoda Masters, had all been to the land of inheritance of the main pagoda. Therefore, they all knew about the statues in the land of inheritance, and the woman in front of them looked exactly the same as the previous pagoda master. What was going on? Didn't she die 10,000 years ago? Was it purely a coincidence that the two of them looked the same? Yi Shu, the giants of the main pagoda, also noticed Yi Shu next to the mysterious lady, and their eyes immediately filled with killing intent. Because in their eyes, Yi Shu was still a traitor. Is this the outside world? The golden leopard was not in the mood to pay attention to these people. He looked around curiously. Zhao Tailai and Tang Hai were also extremely excited. Elder Qin, that traitor, really followed Qin Feiyang. At the same time, the people in the capital also looked coldly at Elder Qin, who was standing next to Qin Feiyang. Boom! But suddenly, a pseudo-god's power, like a volcanic eruption, shrouded all directions. Everyone present suddenly felt as if they had fallen into a 10,000-year-old ice cellar, and their whole body was cold. Everyone looked at Qin Feiyang, and they were all silent. Qin Feiyang said, "I've really disappointed you. Not only did I not die, but I also broke through to the pseudo-god realm." Pseudo-god. Everyone's body and mind trembled, especially young Master Hao. In the divine ruins, pseudo-gods were nothing, but in the Forgotten Continent and the Great Qin Empire, pseudo-gods were comparable to gods. Brother Qin, congratulations, congratulations! Suddenly, a laugh sounded. A young man in purple walked out of the crowd. He was about 1.8 meters tall, and his figure was tall. His black hair was like a waterfall, and his temperament was extraordinary. Those two deep eyes were like two stars. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "So it's Brother Pei. It's been many years since we last met. How have you been?" That's right. This person was Pei Yi. He was also the current leader of the divine Python tribe. He was a man that Qin Feiyang admired very much. Pei Yi shook his head and said with a smile, "I'm still the same. You, on the other hand, are so powerful that others can only look up to you. Brother Pei, you are very talented. Sooner or later, you will also take this step." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Pei Yi's talent was very terrifying. He was even better than young Master Hao. And back then, he also gave Pei Yi potential pills, and small creation pills, which could open the door of potential. It could be said that this person's future achievements were limitless. "I'm very talented." Pei Yi smiled bitterly. Compared with ordinary people, he was indeed a genius. But compared with a monster like Qin Feiyang, he was no different from a fool. Shaking his head, Pei Yi said with a smile, "We haven't seen each other for a long time. Brother Qin, why don't we go out for a gathering?" "I'm afraid not now." Qin Feiyang shook his head and asked, "Have you seen Zhuge Mingyang and Mu Tianyang?" "I've seen Zhuge Mingyang, but Mu Tianyang," Pei Yi frowned. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and condensed Mu Tianyang's shadow. "So it's him." Pei Yi was suddenly enlightened. "Mu Tianyang." "Qin Feiyang? Don't tell me he's the former emperor Mu Tianyang." No, the former emperor has already died in the hands of the former emperor. How could it be him? The people in Beijing immediately got into an uproar. Qin Feiyang was not in the mood to explain, nor did he have the time to do so. He looked at Pei Yi and asked, "Where did they go?" As soon as Mu Tianyang came out, he brought the Mu family back to the Mu family home. Zhuge Mingyang also went back to the Great Qin Empire. Pei Yi said. Qin Feiyang asked, "Did they say anything before they left?" Pei Yi said, "Zhuge Mingyang didn't say anything, but Mu Tianyang did ask Master Mu a question." "What question?" Qin Feiyang asked. "He asked Master Mu if he had done what he asked him to do before he left." Master Mu's answer was that everyone in the Mu family was ready, and the Mu family's treasures were also packed. Pei Yi said, Feiyang, the situation is not good. This Mu Tianyang must have been planning this even before he entered the divine site. Mysterious Madam said in a deep voice, Packing the treasures? Feiyang, it seems that, as you expected, Mu Tianyang is going to escape. Old Qin said, Then let him escape slowly. Great-grandmother, take Yi Shu and the others and go to the Mu family immediately to find out what happened. Remember, don't do anything if you're not sure. Old Qin, Old Zhao, Old Tang, Junior Leopard. Follow me back to the great Qin Empire. Qin Feiyang shouted, his body full of murderous intent. Okay, the 3 people and 1 beast nodded. Seeing Qin Feiyang was about to leave, Li Yan ran out of the crowd and asked, Qin Feiyang, where's Fatso? Qin Feiyang was stunned and turned to look at Li Yan. The first person this little girl asked was actually Fatso. Fatso is really something. He actually took Li He's granddaughter away without anyone noticing. Li He also ran out and looked at Qin Feiyang, smiling. Brother Qin, how have you been? Qin Feiyang looked at the grandfather and grandson and said, Let's talk when we have time. After that, he took the 3 people and the golden leopard to the space-time gate. What's with this guy's attitude? Li Yan was dissatisfied. The situation is really not good. Li He murmured. Whether it was experience, Li He was much better than Li Yan. Before, Zhuge Mingyang and Mu Tianyang left without saying a word, and now Qin Feiyang and the others were also full of a murderous aura. It seemed that something big would happen soon. The space-time gate will be closed soon. All the people of Great Qin, go back quickly. But just as Qin Feiyang and the others were about to enter the space-time gate, accompanied by a cold shout, a figure suddenly blocked in front of them. It's the snow python. Let's go. Seeing this, the people of Great Qin immediately swarmed toward the space-time gate. Powerhouse, Zhao Tai-Lai, Tang Hai, and the golden leopard. As soon as they saw the snow python, they immediately became vigilant. Qin Feiyang and Old Qin's pupils suddenly shrank. They had long known about the existence of the snow python. They also knew how powerful the snow python was. And now they had also broken through to the war god realm. But at this moment, they were shocked to find that they couldn't see through the snow python's cultivation. This was hard for them to accept. Could it be that this snow python was a lesser war god, or even a greater war god? Greetings, Senior. Qin Feiyang bowed. Not bad. You have already stepped into the false god realm. Coincidentally, I have something to talk to you about. Accompany me to the glacier forest. The snow python laughed. Go to the glacier forest? Qin Feiyang frowned and said, Senior, I have something urgent to deal with now. Can we talk about it another day? No. The snow python shook its head. Qin Feiyang immediately became angry. Zhao Tai-Lai asked, Young master, where is the glacier forest? Qin Feiyang thought, the glacier forest is the nest of the snow python. It is in the first region of the Forgotten Continent, very far from here. What does she mean? I already told her that we have something urgent. Why is she still stopping us? Zhao Tai-Lai didn't understand. Genius remembered this site's address in a second. Pinnacle mobile reading website. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.